All right. All right. Peace, family. Y'all know who it is. It's Bakari Lumumba, the progenitor of LumumbaSpeaks.com, back once again with another provocative and evocative, of course, live that we're going to be doing today. I have none other than the man, the myth, the legend himself, Mr. International, Prince Dynast Amir of Search for Uhuru. We're here and we're going to have a great conversation on I think is a great topic. And the question that we're going to be asking is, can you be a Pan-Africanist and vote Republican? But before we get started, I want to go over some ground rules. We're doing a dual live, but of course, as Lumumba Speaks, I will be hosting. So we just want to go over some ground rules, some of the things that we do here at Lumumba Speaks. And first and foremost, diversity of thought is welcome. So if you're on the left, you're on the right, you're right down the middle. We don't have an issue with that. We think that one of the best ways that you can learn and grow is by not situating yourself in an echo chamber. I'll say Black Power. So with that being said, diversity thought is welcome. First, no racial epithets of any kind are used on my channel. So if you use a racial epithet, I will ask you to leave or you will be blocked. So no racial epithets of any kind, N-word, coon, monkey. We don't do that here. So no racial epithets of any kind. This is a Black Power initiative here at Lumumba Speaks. And we know that the first of the three ends of Black Power is self-respect. Self-respect, self-determination, and of course, self-defense. So first and foremost, we're going to respect ourselves as African people. So we will not use racial epithets of any kind on the show. Number three, facts over feelings. So what we want to make sure that we do here is we want to attack the argument someone makes, not the person themselves. So no ad hominems. We want to attack the argument, not the person, facts over feelings. And then, of course, last but not least, no fundamentally false statements. So what do I mean by that? You can have your own opinion. I'll say Black Power, right? But if you make a fundamentally false statement, I'm going to give an example. So Dynast over here, he might be in the clubhouse that believes that LeBron James is the greatest player of all time. That's his opinion.
I never said that.
But I say he might be, right?
Okay.
Yeah, because you know you're a Georgia fan, so it's given that you want to rock for the loser. But that's neither here nor there, right?
Whoa, hold on. Okay, go ahead and finish.
Right. No, but so on the serious tip,
for a second, but go ahead.
On the serious tip, let's just infer for the lack of the example, Dynast was believed that LeBron was the best player in the world, best player ever. That's his opinion. That's fine. But if he were to try to substantiate that opinion by saying Michael Jordan didn't play defense, only won 2 championships, that's a fundamentally false statement. And that would be a situation where I say, okay, timeout. We have to clean that up because on my platform, the information that I put out, right, for public consumption, of course, is a reflection of me. So this is something that we want to make sure we're cognizant of. And then last but not least, our mission here at Lumumba Speaks is neither to exonerate or vilify. It's simply to challenge conventional wisdom and re-examine what has previously been accepted as fact. So with that being said, the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. International himself, Dynast Amir, what's the word?
Hey, so someone has a great question. Somebody posed
in
the chat room. Can you be a Pan-African if you're an Ohio State fan? We got hey, listen, we got to address that. I don't know.
Okay, so this brother,
I don't know. That's a great question.
It's a great question.
It's a great question.
Westside Mike is from my city. He's from the DYT. He's from Dayton. Westside Mike is a fan of that team up north. They call them Michigan. We call them Bitchigan, right? And so,
well, hold on. Whoa. Hasn't Michigan beat you guys the past 3 years?
First and foremost, so you're interrupting me, okay? So, the argument I would make is that you could be more of a Pan-Africanist as a Ohio State fan than you are a University of Michigan fan. That's the argument I would make. Okay. Yes, because the further north you go, the further you're moving away from Africa. So, so that's the argument I'm going to make there. So bag 7-6 first states. Sure, you can. You shouldn't look at either party as a savior for Black people. Pan-Africanism has to move in a political system that's in place. So we're going to need you to tap in, brother. We definitely want you to tap in. The link is in the description. I will go ahead and put the link in the chat, but I also want to give a little background regarding what Pan-Africanism is. So I'm going to share my screen, and then we're going to really get this conversation started, or party started, as some people may like to say. So give me 1 second here. All right, here we go. So this is something I actually use with my students, right? Can you all see this?
Yeah, we'll see it.
Okay. All right, great. So this is something I use with my students when we talk about Black nationalism or Pan-Africanism. Some may be unaware of the difference between Black nationalism and Pan-Africanism. Black nationalism simply advocates for the social, political, and economic empowerment of Black people in one's own country. Pan-Africanism advocates for the social, political, and economic empowerment of Black people globally, right? And so many trace the origins of Pan-Africanism to the success of the Haitian Revolution. We know the term was, of course, coined by the Trinidadian barrister Henry Sylvester Williams at the turn of the late 19th century. But some of the core components of Black nationalism, Pan-Africanism is racial pride, embracing one African heritage. Many would argue this concept of Afrocentrism, unity as a people, self-defense, and of course, political and economic self-determination, and as well as creating autonomous autonomous institutions that serve, of course, Black people. Last but not least, Stokely Carmichael, also known as Kwame Ture, stated that Pan-Africanism was the highest form of what? Black power, right? So with that being said, Prince Dynast Amir, the fan of the team that lost to Alabama in the SEC championship, the floor is yours.
But beat Ohio State the year before in a college playoff. Let's get that right.
That was a fluke.
But we still beat you guys.
Okay, and we'll be preseason number one, so we're not worried about it.
But preseason number one doesn't necessarily translate to finishing number one.
Right. I mean, you all would know that because that's what happened to you all. So yeah, you're speaking from experience. Absolutely.
No, but okay.
You're speaking from experience.
We were the back-to-back national champions.
Right, but you're speaking
I know
from
we played a
experience.
team.
You all were number one,
and I know we played,
didn't finish number one.
And I know we played a team got the Ohio State Buckeyes and we beat them.
Okay, that's cool. Make sure you do it in 2024.
It's gonna happen.
Okay,
yeah,
very good.
Let me ask a question. Is there a Pan-African handbook that is recognized by Pan-Africans, like a set handbook that these are the rules, these are the bylaws? Is there such a thing?
Well, you could argue that there is, right? One would be actually my children have a book. Well, actually, my son, titled Pan-Africanism for Beginners. That would be one. The first Black Nationalist, a Pan-Africanist written manifesto was David Walker's Appeal, which, of course, took place he wrote this in 1829. So David Walker's Appeal is considered one. And, of course, the Philosophies and Opinions of Marcus Garvey. Okay,
so there's not like a just set recognized like I'm a member of Kappa Alpha Psi. I'm a member of certain organizations. Mm-hmm. And there's a handbook,
right?
Like a set book.
Oh yeah, So I'm glad you asked that question. So there's a difference between an organization and an ideology. Now, when you join particular Pan-Africanist organizations, they have particular written guidelines of behavior, values, principles, so on and so forth. But an organization and an ideology are two different things. A good example would be Christianity, right? There are different denominations of Christianity, and those different denominations have particular values and beliefs. But overarching, there are certain things you all would agree with as a Christian, right? Jesus Christ is the Son of God, Immaculate Conception, raised in 3 days, things of that nature.
So is Pan-Africanism centralized?
By centralized, do you mean
is it centralized? There are headquarters. Is one person recognized as the king or the prince or the president of Pan-Africanism? Is it centralized? That's my question.
So no, there's no prince of Pan-Africanism, right? No, and we're not talking about Dr. Umar Johnson, right? But yes, Brandon mentioned Dr. Amos Wilson's book, Blueprint for Black Power. Many people consider that to be one of the preeminent texts that one should read if they are a Pan-Africanist. But one would argue that the headquarters of Pan-Africanism is, of course, the African Union.
Okay. So, but technically, it's not centralized.
No.
Okay. So, because when I noticed there's a lot of different people, here we go. What I noticed when it comes to Pan-Africanism, you have people who are very red, but they pick and choose what could be considered Pan-Africanism and what can't be considered. If you do this, you're Pan-African. If you don't do that, you're not a
Well,
Pan.
yeah. So there are some core
it's
tenets.
very gray. It's very
Right.
gray. That's
Well,
all.
there are some core tenets of Pan-Africanism. Pan-Africanism, irrespective of where you are in the world, if someone is actually a practitioner of the ideology and movement, Pan-Africanism does not advocate the practice of interracial marriage or miscegenation. That's uniform across the board.
Okay.
If you're in Antarctica or you're in Siberia, right? That's uniform. So if you meet someone who's engaged in that type of behavior, they aren't really a Pan-Africanist. That's just the reality. Or you might have someone who would say they're a Pan-African socialist, where the issue is what? Capitalism and not racial in nature, right? It isn't a racial oppression issue. It's a class issue, right? But those are typically individuals who do that because they just want to engage in interracial relationships.
What if you're the product of an interracial relationship? Can you be a Pan-African?
Well, yes, and there have been several. Some of the fathers of Pan-Africanism have been, of course, products of interracial relationships. Of course, we know that unfortunately, this tended to take place as a result of sexual assault. But we could think of one, W.B. Du Bois. We could think of Booker T. Washington.
Frederick Douglass.
Frederick Douglass was an integrationist. He wasn't a Pan-Africanist. He was an integrationist.
Wouldn't Booker T. Washington be kind of somewhat considered integrationist?
Well, no, actually, if you've read Up from Slavery, right?
I have, but it's been a while ago. But I know he had. I know he had his in when he was in Atlanta, the compromise.
Yes. Well, and that's a big conversation we can have. But what we tend to find, and there is such thing as Pan-African socialists. Kwame Ture was a Pan-African socialist, for example, right? So Kwame Nkrumah, for example. So there are Pan-Africanists that were Pan-African socialists. I mean, there's a whole. There's a litany of scholarly literature on Pan-African socialism. Now, I don't agree with Pan-African socialism, but it is an actual thing. But what most people don't know, if you actually do a detailed reading and interrogation of Booker T. Washington's politics, what you'll find is that he was saying a lot of things on the surface level to appease, of course, the white power structure, because they were living during the time of the Nadir race relations, where Black people literally didn't have any rights, right? However, we know that he was funding, of course, civil rights petitions to the Supreme Court. You know, he was interested in issues in Haiti and the Caribbean. So from his actions behind closed doors was Pan-Africanist in nature.
Now, you mentioned interracial dating in regards to being a Pan-African.
Yes.
Kwame Nkrumah.
Yes. Yes, so, and I'm glad you brought that up. And here's the thing, we found that. So Henry Sylvester Williams was married to a white woman, like what the French told you, right? Mm-hmm. When you read, when you read Kwame Nkrumah's biography, which you actually have, he talks about, and Brother B. Quillan said he'll be in hopefully in 30 minutes. Appreciate you, brother. He talks about the reason why he married her was he viewed, Pan-Africanism as irrespective of one's race, right? And this was the daughter of the guy who was running Egypt at the time, the head of state of Egypt. So, but he even mentioned that he regretted marrying her because they had nothing in common. She wasn't a Black woman, etc.
Really?
So he did it for political reasons because he was seeking to try to unify the continent. But he stated that he regretted even marrying her.
Well, I never knew that.
Yeah. So that's why I said the devil's in the details. But that is something that's frowned upon by hardcore Pan-Africanists, absolutely. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, that's right. Yes, like Shabaka stated, it was about strengthening African unity, absolutely. But he did later state that he regretted it because they didn't even speak the same language. They had nothing in common, so on and so forth. But we do know that from antiquity, even to today, oftentimes heads of state would marry someone based on marry the daughter or son of a different ruling class in the country for political reasons.
How did Egypt and Ghanaian relations work out with him marrying?
Well, actually, we could say it didn't go very far, and part of that was because there was of course, U.S.-backed coup in Ghana in the late 60s. Yeah.
Pan-Africanism is dead. I'm Team Cameron. This dude's name is Sankofa.
Right. Right. Killer, right? So once again, something to, of course, be cognizant of. But if you talk to someone who's actually a practitioner, and another aspect of Pan-Africanism that I would discuss and even mention is that it's really rooted in wherever you are, helping African people in whatever way you can.
And that's my point, but like we got to I think we overcomplicate it, and then some people they insert their own individual agendas into what is Pan-Africanism.
Could you give an example?
What the topic we have today?
Okay, so please elaborate.
Example: can you be a Pan-African and vote Republican?
Yes.
And vote Republican.
Okay.
And the only reason why, because I noticed when people criticize that Pan-Africanists for voting for Donald Trump or Republican, they don't have that same energy for those who vote for the left. And I'm like, okay, can you be a you can't be a Pan-African and vote for Trump or Republican, but you can be a Pan-African still and vote for Biden?
So this is what I would say. The individuals that I know who are truly Pan-Africanists have that same energy. So I would have to ask the question: who are you coming in contact with that claims that they're Pan-Africanists, but don't take umbrage with the left as well as the right? I would need to know who these.
I would say they're more critical when you vote for the right, but when it's for the left, it's kind of like how you say, well, you know what? They both, as they say, two birds on the same, two wings on the same bird.
Well, the question I would have
but they don't have that same energy.
But this is what I would say to that. To me, that would be tantamount to a person saying, "When I'm going to vote Democrat rather than Republican because they're both the two wings on the same bird." That would be tantamount to saying, "I'm going to be with someone who's verbally abusive rather than physically abusive." It's still abuse. So if that's the argument you're making, it's still abuse.
Somebody in the chat room said that was a terrible example of Kwame Nkrumah. I mean, he still married a non-black woman.
Yeah, he did.
He did.
And like I said,
he did. I mean,
yes,
he did.
I know, and when you speak to people who are actual Pan-Africanists, right? They to this day take issue with that. To this day, take issue with that. So I'm like I said, if you're speaking to people who are actual Pan-Africanists, they take issue with that. That is something to be addressed. That's something that is addressed all the time.
Okay, so when can Pan-African get an exception? I guess like when do you guys decide who gets an exception, who doesn't?
Well, I would argue that there are no exceptions.
So is Kwame Nkrumah Pan-African? Yes or no?
He is a Pan-Africanist, but what he did is not considered acceptable behavior.
He's not a Pan-Africanist.
So you can get an exception via
no, there is no exception. Board. There is no exception. And for example,
yeah, you could make a.
Hold on.
Sorry, you're only just hosting a show. I thought at least I get a word in since you got the permanent spot.
I'm going to let you speak. Kwame Nkrumah was a Pan-Africanist. He was the leader of the Casablanca group. Kwame Nkrumah stated that the most important book he ever read was The Philosophy of Opinions of Marcus Garvey. He went to the continent of Africa, promoted and supported financially and politically anti-decolonial movements in Africa. And of course, he was the leader of the Casablanca group that wanted to create a United States of Africa, which was the vision of one Marcus Garvey. He also opened his administration up for African Americans and other members of the African diaspora to repatriate to Africa, right? So, I mean, he was a Pan-Africanist.
Okay.
And Nkrumah was just a hustler, just like a lot of people nowadays claiming themselves to be Pan-Africanists. Because if you're an African man, as I sit here in Africa today, right now, in a country where you can have 7 wives, why would a nigga say, hold on. No, man, let me say what I gotta say.
We do not allow racial epithets on my channel.
You're a communist. It's called freedom of speech.
Brady, come on, man.
It's freedom of speech. Don't.
Brady, come
No,
on.
we don't do that here.
I mean, I want to hear Brady, but Brady, come on, man. You gotta calm down,
I do not allow racial epithets on my channel. My channel is a reflection of me, and I don't allow that. I don't allow that in my personal life. I don't allow that in my professional life. So if anyone who's in the comments who wants to come on and be part of live, Lumumba Speaks does not allow racial epithets of any kind for any reason on my channel. If you cannot engage in intelligent Black discussion without speaking ill of Black people and using racial epithets, this is not the place for you. And it never will be the place for you. My channel is a reflection of me, and we don't play that type of stuff. I don't play those games at all for any reason. And this isn't me bloviating, acting tough on YouTube. I'm a former boxer. I'm about that life. So, Brother Dynast and then Brother Dwayne.
You can pass to Brother Dwayne. Let me ask you this. Can you bring Brandon back on and just give him, like, that was a warning shot, and that if he does it again, because Brandon, we're actually we're live on my channel, but it's like a joint stream, and it's really like Lumumba stream. So yeah, Brandon, you gotta
You got to
act
toe the
further.
line. When I
You
when
gotta
I
toe
when
the
I
line.
was on his channel, and he said, "Hey, this is how we're going to do things," I acquiesce. No man is a bigger man than the man that's in his home. That's how it works. And then once again, if you can't respect someone, this isn't the place for you. But please, Brother Dwayne, go right ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I would just, comment on Kwame Nkrumah. I think it's no question that he was a Pan-Africanist. I mean, when people come to me and ask about Pan-Africanism, the first book that I actually recommend people is Africa Must Unite by Kwame Nkrumah, because I think that book really lays out the argument for the unification of Africa. So I think, that's without question. And, like Brother Lumumba said, exactly, Kwame Nkrumah's marriage was a political marriage. It wasn't something that he wanted to do, and it was something that he actually regretted. But I think, even, with that aside, that's something that Nkrumah does get a lot of criticism for within Pan-African circles. But, the argument I would make is that when we're assessing historical figures, we can't reduce them to, one aspect of their lives. So that even, though Kwame Nkrumah's marriage might be looked at as a contradiction in terms of Pan-Africanism, that doesn't necessarily negate everything else that he did, in service of the Pan-African movement. And I think the same argument could be made for historical figures like Henry Sylvester Williams, for example. He was also married to a European woman. I don't think that necessarily negates his contributions to the Pan-African movement, even though that would be a contradiction.
And this is a great question. Was Gaddafi a Pan-Africanist in your opinion? So this is a lot to unpack, right? Because context matters. Many people would argue that he was a Pan-Africanist because he was a Pan-Africanist because it was expedient for him to do so politically. And there's a historical context, a backdrop to that. But Brother Dwayne, would you like to answer that question? Was Gaddafi a Pan-Africanist?
Well, before we go there, you keep bringing up it was a political move with the marriage between Kwame Nkrumah and
yes.
I forgot her name. Like, can you expand on the political part? Like, what actually was Ghana going to gain through this marriage?
So it's a political move in the sense that Nkrumah's vision for Pan-Africanism was continental unity. And by continental unity, he envisioned unity between Black Africa and what we call Black Africa or Sub-Saharan Africa and Sahara. So the marriage was supposed to be a symbolic representation of African and Arab unity. Now, and this is actually relevant to Gaddafi. Obviously, in hindsight, we know that was a mistake on Nkrumah's part because Arabs are just as racist as Europeans. But the logic at the time was that both Africans on the continent and Arabs were fighting European colonialism because North Africa had been colonized as well. So the vision at the time was a type of Pan-African unity that would unite the Arabs and Africans on the African continent, to fight colonialism. And that was supported by the fact that Nasser of Egypt actually was an advocate for Pan-Africanism as well. So at the time, there were actually Arab leaders who were advocating for the type of continental unity that Nkrumah envisioned.
Okay, right. So, and Brandon states in the chat, if Kwame Nkrumah married a white woman for the sake of uniting the continent, she wasn't white, she was Arab. Why didn't he marry a wife from each African country? Well, I think it's very simple. He wasn't a polygamist.
Yeah.
Very simple. That's why he wasn't a polygamist. So
in 2024, can a Pan-African in the name of uniting the continent marry an Arab woman from North Africa? Tunisian, Moroccan.
Well, a person could do whatever they want, but it's incongruent with the values. For example, I could give an example, and I'm gonna use a religious example. In Islam, drinking alcohol is considered haram. It's forbidden. Right. But a person can do whatever they want, but it's not acceptable behavior.
Okay. So can you be a Pan-African and marry a lady from Tunisia or Morocco?
No,
in the name of uniting the continent.
It is incongruent with the values and principles and core tenets of Pan-Africanism. But like I said, you can't control a person's behavior, but the behavior will be antithetical to the concept and idea.
But okay, so Lumumba, come on, help me out. Can you be a Pan-African if you marry if you call yourself a Pan-African? Just say yes or no, Lumumba. Come on, give me.
No, I would say no. I would say no.
Okay, but Nkrumah gets a pass.
No, I didn't say he got a pass. I just told you he's criticized to this day for that very thing.
So that's why I made the point of mentioning the historical context. Obviously, in 2024, we have the benefit of hindsight, so we know that the attempt to unify Africans and Arabs on the continent it simply didn't work.
Right.
So that was a mistake that Nkrumah made that we have the benefit of hindsight to recognize now that it was a mistake.
Okay. Okay. And even with the Arab slave trade, right? The spread of Islam, you're trying to tell me that Kwame Nkrumah did not have the hindsight of that.
Well, because like I said, at the time, Arabs were fighting the same anti-colonial struggle on the continent that Africans were. So the understanding was that Africans and Arabs had a common enemy, the common enemy being European colonialism. And it wasn't just Nkrumah. Frantz Fanon, for example, he went to Algeria and supported the Algerian Revolution against the French. So the same French that were colonizing African people in the Caribbean were the French that Fanon was supporting the struggle against in Algeria. So, like I said, the historical context at the time were that there were Pan-Africanists who viewed Arabs as sharing a common struggle against colonialism alongside African people.
Okay, so say, because Lumumba said that the African Union is an example of a Pan-African organization. Am I correct, Lumumba?
Yes.
So say Morocco joins, in fact, Morocco might be part of the African Union, or say one of those countries join the African Union, right? Then can a Pan-African marry an Arab from North Africa?
Well, once again, as I stated, a person can do whatever they want, but the behavior, like you telling me,
it's a yes or no, Lubu.
I already answered the question.
But if they're common now, if they're a part of this Pan-African organization, can this Pan-African man marry an Arab from North Africa? They're part of the African Union, which is a Pan-African organization.
Well, so we have to break this down. A person can do whatever they want. Now, the issue is the behavior is incongruent with the values. You could go marry a Swede.
The values are the same now. The values are the same. They're all African Unions. It's the same now, right?
No,
that's not true.
Be quiet and go right ahead.
I'm at work right now. I just wanted to touch on the Kwame Nkrumah topic a little bit.
I'm sorry. We need you to speak up a little bit, brother, if you can.
Can you hear me? Hello?
Yes.
I'm at work right now, my fault. But I just wanted to touch a little bit on the Kwame Nkrumah topic. I think whenever we have this discussion about Kwame Nkrumah, we have to have historical context to it. Yes, what he did, most Pan-Africans would not agree with it, but those were different times, and he did it for a certain reason. African countries just became independent, and you wanted to unite Africa. And the only way to unite Africa
unite Africa through sex.
No, not through sex. Not through sex, through marriage. Because when you do that, the marriage is once you marry a family, the families come together. So he thought that if you were to marry into this Arab family, he'll be able to unite North Africa with the rest of Africa. We all know who North Africa is controlled by, right? Right, Dynast?
Right.
Exactly, the Arabs. So he wanted to unite Africa. And if you read his book, Africa Must Unite, everything he said, everything he has said about Africa is currently happening right now as we speak, because Africa is still not united. So he was taking any measure he can, any possibility that he possibly can, just to unite Africa. That was the only reason why he married that lady in the first place. And he definitely made a mistake. That was a mistake.
I understand, but I think we use this term historical context to give people a pass and make excuses. So again, in 2024, these Arab countries joined the African Union, which is a Pan-African organization. Will Pan-Africans, in the name of uniting the continent, because they're part of the African Union, marry these Arab women?
No, and the African Union is not a Pan-African organization. We all know that. Any real Pan-African...
Lumumba thoughts? Lumumba?
No, I'm gonna let him finish and then I'm gonna chime in.
Okay, go ahead.
The Pan-African Union has been compromised and undermined. We have former ambassadors that was a part of the Pan-African Union that came out and also repeats the same thing I'm saying right now. And Kwame Nkrumah was definitely wrong. We all know that, but he was doing anything he possibly can at the time to unite Africa. And what I'm saying is, we're supposed to learn from that history, not repeat the same history. We've seen what happened when he made that decision. Nothing came out of it, nothing tangible. So now we know that we cannot repeat that same mistake again. So yes. I don't think we should use Kwame Nkrumah as a scapegoat to continue to mess with Arab or white women, because it does not work. So why would we repeat the same mistake continuously? And I hate the fact that most people love using Kwame Nkrumah to like in this topic. Because Kwame Nkrumah did way more than that to show that he was pro-black and that he was for his people. He did way more than just marry an Arab lady. So right. I think very quickly. So
And I'm glad you provided that context, B. Quillan, about African Union. It has been compromised for the most part. And prior to Gaddafi, the African Union was being funded by the European Union. So we know that wouldn't get anyone anywhere. But we do know that the African Union and its predecessor, the Organization of African Unity, was the brainchild of what? Marcus Garvey. Right, so that was the idea Kwame Nkrumah took from Marcus Garvey and then brought to the African continent. Right, so that's the reason why the African Union was created was based on the vision of Marcus Garvey and Pan-Africanism. But the organization has been compromised.
Fact.
And matter of fact, one of the most vociferous critiques of the African Union is it's called a toothless bulldog. And most people may not know, but my master's thesis was on Pan-Africanism. It was titled "Is Pan-Africanism Dead?"
Brandon, I'm very curious how you just in the comments, you always disrespecting like African leaders and you're supposed to be some type of Pan-African, but you always leave out like historical context with certain things. Like what Brandon does is very dangerous. Like
no, but honestly, not to interrupt. I'm sorry, it's rude. I just think we abuse this term historical context too much. That's just me personally. I just think we just too much.
Very important.
We abuse it too much to give.
For example, that's like me coming to America. For example, that's like me coming. For example, it's like MLK. People love bashing MLK and just speaking out of turn without even knowing the full historical context. You need to have an accurate historical point of view or perspective. You just can't speak on history when there's many different nuances. You have to make sure you add the historical context so it can fully make sense. Like if you just get on the panel and just basically say that Kwame Nkrumah married an Arab woman and just leave it at that, you're making it seem like he was a sellout or something, and he was not that. That's the last thing Kwame Nkrumah.
I'm not saying this. So I'm not trying to minimize anything that Kwame Nkrumah did. It's just again, it was brought up. Can you marry or date a non-black woman to be a Pan-Africanist?
No. The answer is no.
And Kwame Nkrumah did it. So I'm like it's just like here we go.
And here's the thing, but even he said it was a mistake.
Right, and that's cool. And that's cool.
So
it's just like I don't know. I come from a performance-based like Ohio State. I'm actually gonna talk good. If you are the all-star running back, all right, and you drop the ball and make a mistake, you can get a pass, or it might get swept under the rug. So
that's not what I'm saying.
Well, but when it comes to Kwame Nkrumah, that's what it sounds like.
No, I repeat multiple times he was wrong.
I would say this: if you think that's the case, then and you're judging the totality of Kwame Nkrumah's Pan-African activism based on who he married, who he later stated was a mistake, then I would argue you don't know much about his activism as a Pan-Africanist.
I could do the
same thing with almost every black leader because it's always going to find you're always going to find something that they did that you do not agree with. For example, Marcus Garvey. Some people do not agree with the fact that he had a meeting with the KKK. But if you had the historical context, you would see why he had that meeting with the KKK. The same thing with Kwame Nkrumah. If you had the historical context, you would get the reason for why he did attempt or he did marry this Arab lady. It was a reason why he did it. And I'm not saying I agree with it or that it's correct or right. No, we're saying he made a mistake. He was trying to come up with a solution to unite the African continent, but it did not work.
And he even admitted it was a mistake.
And please educate me. So I'm not fully versed on why Marcus Garvey met with the KKK.
So we know part of Marcus Garvey's program was repatriation to the African continent. And so he said, well, the KKK, we have some similar beliefs. I believe we don't want to live around you. You don't want to live around us. We don't want to be in the same nation and country together. So the meeting was, can you help us, in gaining funds to repatriate to the African continent? This was also done by some followers, some Pan-Africanists in Mississippi, right? Who actually went out and actually met with a Mississippi senator at the time. I'm missing his name. And this Mississippi senator, who was a segregationist, who was a white supremacist, actually went to Congress and sponsored a bill for the United States government to provide funds for African Americans to repatriate to Africa. Now he sponsored the bill, but it wasn't passed. But there have been a number of times when you say, "Hey, we don't want to live here with you. You don't want us living here with you. So hey, we can agree on that. Help us get the hell up out of here." So Marcus Garvey wasn't the only person to actually meet with white supremacists and say, "Hey, help us get out of here."
Okay, so in 2024, if a Pan-African schedules a meeting with the Ku Klux
No.
Klan or not? Okay, but is
Hold
it
on,
okay?
wait, hold
Okay,
on.
but okay. So what's different? What's
The
different?
difference
What's
is we
different?
learn from Marcus Garvey's mistake. The difference is we learn from Kwame and Nkrumah's mistake. That's the difference. You're supposed to learn from history. You guys are using history as it was. We're supposed to repeat everything our ancestors made. No, we're supposed to take the good and leave the bad. That's the whole point of history. You're supposed to learn from it. Like, what are we talking about?
Right. And provide triggers for evolution says, is it dead? I argue in my thesis that it's on life support, right? And so I could put the link in the chat to my thesis if you wanted to read it. But I argue that Pan-Africanism isn't dead, but it is on life support. And I go over a number of reasons why that's the case.
And that's one topic too. If Pan-Africanism is dead, so you're basically saying black folks is done. Like, I don't think people understand how like deep this problem is. Without Pan-Africanism, we basically have like, what are we gonna do? How are we gonna like basically get political, economic, or social, or even cultural power? Because every other group is practicing some type of pan, whether it's Pan-Europeanism, Pan-Asian, like it practices some type of pan. There's power in unity. There's power in numbers. So it's like I don't even get why people comment on be on the comments as bashing Pan African. If anything, critiques is welcome. We should be trying to figure out ways how to improve Pan Africanism to make it more effective. Because it's an objective and also an ideology. We have to accomplish this objective for us to actually have economic, political, and social and cultural power. So I don't even get that argument. Like,
I think that's a great point. And I think you make a great point when you state, when we talk about history, it isn't simply to, bash or vilify people, but it's to learn from it so that we don't make the same mistakes.
Right. And I agree with you, Dynast. You can even ask Brother Dwayne. Like, I do not support interracial dating whatsoever. So I know he made a mistake, but I also understand the historical context. Because at that time, it was a little different. We had he was hoping that the Arabs are in North Africa, we have to deal with them somehow, some way. So can I unite these two groups of people to where we can unite the whole continent? That was his goal. But as we see, it did not work. He made a mistake. And even I think he even said it himself that he made a mistake. So it's like, yeah, we're supposed to learn from there now. We have no friends, like John Henry Clark said. We're supposed to learn from there.
And another example of that would be the Bandung Conference, right? In 1955, there was the Bandung Conference, the Afro-Asian Conference, right? And they were both fighting against, of course, European colonialism. And we realized, hey, that ain't working either because, Asians and Arabs were anti-black as well. So these are things you learned from. But during that time, when we're looking at the height of the decolonial struggle, post-World War II, there was a push, to try to unite people based on the fact that they were, being colonized by Europeans.
Let me read a couple of these super chats real quick.
Absolutely.
Hold on. Oops. Why hasn't an African-American majority political party been formed like DA and SA for minority whites? And then let's stop. He did not marry that Arab thinking it would bring unity on the continent. Bring Brandon back.
So number one, I need to know what DA and SA is. Number two, Breezy Diallo, if you're making that claim, and obviously you haven't read Kwame Nkrumah's work, where he states that's the reason why he married her, and it also states that it was a mistake to marry her. So I don't know where you're getting that from, but once again, we want to ingratiate ourselves with literature and, of course, reputable sources of information where we're making claims. Because as I stated before, on my platform, we do not allow people to make claims that are patently false. Yes. So once again, something.
All right. So the topic: can you be a Pan-Africanist and vote Republican?
Yes. Can you be a Pan-Africanist and vote Republican? So I think I would say you can vote for a person who's Republican. Absolutely. A good example of this in the state of Ohio was the former mayor of Cleveland, later governor, and then of course U.S. Senator George Voinovich, right? And one of the reasons, Cleveland was a majority black city. He received, I think, 60 to 70% of the black vote. Why? Because his policies were beneficial to the African-American community in Cleveland. He focused on inner city development, right? A number of things he did in terms of ingratiating themselves with black unions in Cleveland. The number of things he did in terms of educational reform, desegregating the police force. So you could vote for a person that's Republican if their policies are beneficial to the black community.
Okay.
Yes, another example would be the former governor. He was a black man, Republican governor of Virginia, Douglas Wilder. We look at Richard Thornbush. He was the governor of Pennsylvania. He was elected with 60% of the black vote in Pennsylvania. Why? Because his policies were actually beneficial to the black community.
In fact, and just so you could be Pan-African and participate in politics wherever you're at, for the most part.
Yes, you should engage politically wherever you're at, because the politics is engaging in you, right? It's engaging you, so we should engage it. Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes. But once again, we look at the policies of the person, of the candidate, local, state, and federal.
Mm-hmm. Hey, bring Brandon. bring Brandon back on, man. Give him a pass, Labuba. Give him a pass. Just don't, Brandon, you can't be coming out here screaming and yelling and using.
Well, no, like I said, I don't allow racial epithets of any kind on my show, and this has been since I started my show. I've stated that. I say every show at the beginning of my show, I say, listen, you cannot use racial epithets of any kind on my platform. He came on, did it anyway. That's blatantly disrespect. That's like you telling me when I come to your house, hey, but Lumumba, when you come to my house, you got to take your shoes off before you walk in. And I don't take my shoes off, I walk in anyway. Hey, you're going to have to leave. I would have to leave. That's just the reality. So Gaddafi, let's get back to Gaddafi. The question of Gaddafi, if he was a Pan-Africanist. Dwayne, what do you say?
No, I would say he was a failed Pan-Arabist who turned to Pan-Africanism because he saw a better opportunity. Because the thing is, when you actually look at his policies, for most of the time Gaddafi was in power, he was doing things that were actually contrary to Pan-Africanism. For example, when there was a conflict between Ethiopia and Eritrea, he was playing both sides of that conflict. Now, if you're a Pan-Africanist, you try to bring unity between two warring African countries, not playing both sides of the conflict. He also went to war with Chad to try to take territory away from Chad and annex it towards Libya. So again, how are you a Pan-Africanist and you're waging a war against another African country to try to steal their territory? Another example, when Idi Amin invaded Tanzania, same thing, Gaddafi intervened in that conflict on the side of Uganda and on the side of Idi Amin. So again, this is a conflict between two African countries, and rather than trying to be a mediator or trying to bring peace and unity between these two warring countries, he was taking sides. So that was the type of game that Gaddafi was playing. He was, the type of person who would actually, implement policies that were very divisive on the African continent. And only after his vision for Pan-Arabism failed, he turned towards Pan-Africanism, and he found a bit more success because, at the time there was a vacuum. Even today, there's not, that leader on the African continent who really we can point to as, continuing Kwame Nkrumah's vision for Pan-Africanism. So Gaddafi took it upon himself to fill that vacuum and to advocate for Nkrumah's vision of Pan-African unity. So he was relatively successful at that, and part of it too is the support he gave to the struggle in South Africa, the anti-apartheid struggle, and his relationship with Nelson Mandela. I think that helped to legitimize him as a Pan-African icon on the continent as well. But when you actually look at his policies, before he found the opportunity within Pan-Africanism, he was a Pan-Arabist who was actually trying to divide African people across the continent. So yeah, to me, he's not. I wouldn't consider him a Pan-Africanist, and he was very inconsistent just in general as a political leader. For example, Gaddafi was supposed to be a socialist. He was supposed to be anti-imperialist, but at the same time, he was working with the FBI to capture and torture his political opponents. So on one hand, he's preaching anti-imperialism, but he's working with the same imperialist powers to torture his own political opponents. So he was a very contradictory political leader, and I would argue an opportunist in many ways.
Absolutely. And make sure y'all hit the like button. Thumbs up, thumbs up, thumbs up. Please subscribe. You're watching Lumumba Speaks here on YouTube with search for Uhuru, Brother Dynast Amir, your Mr. International himself, and your favorite historian, Brother Dwayne Omawale, the author of over 24 books on African, Caribbean, and of course, Black African American history, political savant, as I would call him. And we're having a conversation regarding, can you be a Pan-Africanist and vote Republican? So sister says, I loved his ideas, but not his actions. Yes. And yeah, most people would argue that Gaddafi's turn towards Pan-Africanism was expedient, because I think there was a situation where the Reagan administration attacked or bombed one of his compounds, and he turned to Arab leaders and said, hey, we got to do something about this. And they were like, whatever. And that's when he turned towards his idea of Pan-Africanism, because he wasn't getting any support from his Arab brothers.
Yeah, and the Arab League actually, the NATO intervention to help overthrow Gaddafi, the Arab League was behind that intervention as well. So Gaddafi was not well liked by Arab leaders. So he was in a situation where he had no choice but to turn to Africa, because he found more support among African leaders than Arab leaders.
So Jared Street states, what is Africa doing to help our struggle besides use our affirmative action benefits?
Who is R? What is R?
Who is
R? Like, what is R affirmative action benefits? What is
And we know in America, affirmative action benefits white women more than any other
It benefited the
racial,
most. Yeah.
gender,
What is R?
demographic
Yeah.
group. So that this is just something that we know. So actually, affirmative action was created. It's supposed to be to benefit African Americans, but once again, we talk about interest convergence and that concept of critical race theory. On the surface, it's supposed to benefit Black people, but in anyone actually benefits whites because of white women being the primary beneficiary. They're getting jobs, being able to get contracts for their businesses, and then of course they go back to a white family. It benefits white people. This is supposed to be something that was supposed to benefit us. So something to consider.
Yeah, put a link in the chat room. Let's bring some more people on.
Yeah, put the link. I'm gonna put the link in the chat. I'm gonna put the link in the chat, family. Also, the link is in the description. If you haven't subscribed to my Dynast's channel, make sure you do so. We're having a great conversation here on Lumumba Speaks and Search for Uhuru regarding can you be a Pan-Africanist and vote Republican? I think I answered that question. Once again, I would argue from a Pan-African standpoint, you should be someone who's politically astute, politically mature, and you vote based on the candidates platform, and of course their policies, local, state, and of course federal. You look at their policies, not the party.
Dwayne, you want to add to that?
All I would add to it is I agree 100%. I think as a Pan-Africanist, that's definitely how you should approach politics, and not even just from a Pan-African perspective. I think just in general, I think that's how most people should approach politics and look at politics. So, ideally, you'd be voting for policies and platforms. You wouldn't, be attached to a particular political party and voting solely just because you have a loyalty to that party. Because at the end of the day, that's what politics are about. You're electing public officials to implement policies.
Well, and I would even argue, I remember when I was in undergrad, there was a brother I was cool with. And so he was running for graduate student senate, some type of student government position. So he's like, hey, you're going to vote for me, right? I'll say, well, what is your platform? What are your policies? And I was like, hey, this is leadership, not likership. I can't just vote for you because we're cool. We worked out a couple times together. I need to know what your platform is. Yeah. So I would just argue that just being politically mature, that's what you should do, irrespective of Pan-Africanism. And that's the position I've taken since I was voting age. I've always told people, look at the candidates, of course, their platform, their proposals, and regarding what they're promising their potential constituents, rather than what party they're part of. And of course, I got a lot of pushback from that because my parents are Democrats.
To Niger.
Greetings, and this in Dynast, and greetings to everyone on the panel, the chat, and then to the viewers. The question was about, isn't it, whether a Pan-Africanist can vote for a Republican? If that is the question, I think why not? If as long as the Republicans wants to do the right thing by the community, isn't it? In this struggle, it doesn't matter. You can even work with your enemy, as long for the time being, for specific gains. Because historically that has happened. This is something that people do. You don't rule out any opportunity to gain advancement. The question is whether the voters will demand anything of those Republicans. If they don't, I think somebody highlighted something on the chat that is quite interesting. That why is it that the African American community don't form their own political party, even if it's the minority party? Because if you gather those votes, it could matter in a decisive vote in the Senate and all those places. So, like in Israel now, minority parties actually wield a lot of power because of this. They can, because they make decisive votes, or the deciding votes, so they can wield a lot of power. So, if the two of the parties are not giving you what you want, you need to move. You can't just stay there, because it's like, well, if two of them are advice, they won't help you. What that is crying out for is that you change, because if you remain there, it's just a recipe for disaster for the future. So I think that a Pan-Africanist can vote for a Republican or a Democrat as long as you have specific demands and they are willing to meet it. If they're not going to meet it, they don't bother. There's no point. You might as well sit at home.
That's a great point, brother. Great point. Great point. And U.S. lawyer says Republicans helped free the slaves. Democrats fought to keep them enslaved. Implemented Jim Crow in the KKK. Being a black Democrat is analogous to being a Jewish Nazi. So we need to unpack that a little bit because we know that Jim Crow was supported by both political parties. We know both political parties supported the Compromise of 1877 that led to Jim Crow and then they deal with race relations. If you haven't read the book The Betrayal of the Negro by Pan-African historian Rayford Logan, you need to do so. I have it behind me here. So that is one issue that. Secondly, when we talk about the Republicans helped free the slaves, up until the late 1920s, black people voted primarily Republican. But why did that change? Because there was a shift in the ideology of the Republican Party, particularly after Roosevelt with the New Deal. So we have to understand that political parties don't maintain the same perspectives regarding their views and relationship with black people over centuries. They change over time.
Oh yeah, they definitely will change because if they feel you have something to offer them, and that is
I'm sorry,
something
real quick, but Nigel, if I could very quickly, because a good example would be, yes, the Republican Party freed the slaves, but also the Republican Party was the party of law and order that sought to crack down on what perceived gains by African Americans and black people in America in the post-civil rights movement, right? So once again, we have to have this conversation in totality.
Yeah.
But Nigel, go right ahead.
Yeah, there is a bit of a vacuum. It's happening on the continent too. When you were discussing the Gaddafi's legacies and all, I was surprised to see. I have learned a few things on this stream actually. That Algeria actually trained the ANC and Mandela himself. So it's very interesting because these groups still express the most independence on that continent, especially from the West. You saw what South Africa did in the international this court, and how Algeria expresses its independence on that continent. And the problem in Africa is that you were having that conversation about Nkrumah. It appears that the West Africans, the Central Africans, we failed. We are the ones that let the continent down, really, because at that time we were at ascendancy. The Nigerian economy was quite good, and the prospects were high. We had oil, we had everything. There was a time the Nigerian government was saying we don't know what to do with money. It just how we have money, but we don't know what to do with it. So if we had gone on to build upon that and form a strong entity within that region, I don't think the Nkrumah would have failed, because people gravitate towards power, and North Africa is a bordering they are bordering nations, and if the sub-Saharan African countries fail, where else have they got to go to? They will go to Saudi Arabia, they will go to the Middle East. That's what they are doing. And many of us in Africa are actually very happy to run to the West ourselves because we don't see prospects on the continent. So that context also matters. But from the point of view of the African Americans, what I see there is that there is no clear organization in terms of politically. They don't have any clear organization. If they are operating mysteriously in a way that benefits the community without us knowing, it is very mysterious because I can't see it. I don't see what they are doing that is really benefiting the community. And I can't believe I was agreeing. Man, I was so in agreement with Candice Owen the other day when she released a video about some of the decadence within the community that seems to be orchestrated by people that are not within the community. They are perverting the community of the African Americans. You have all this type of stuff that they are doing, promoting within the music industry and different aspects. It's like, who is the gatekeeper in the African American community preventing these things from happening? There is nobody. It's like these people, an Arab guy and whoever can form an alliance with one black guy that just needs money, and they just start perverting the community publicly. They will release videos about, they make African American men come across as if they are weak and transgender and fake kind of men, and the women are just looking like what is going on? I've seen things before, but this time it seems as if there is nobody checking anything. You know, so I feel like on the African American side, there's nobody checking in. In Africa, clearly we know what our president is doing in Nigeria. There, he goes on. They are all supporting the West, like Algeria, this in Niger Republic.
Mr. Sandman, if you could just cam up in queue, and then I'll bring you in the chat.
Niger Republic, Burkina Faso, and Mali now have left ECOWAS. And instead of our leaders understanding that, you know, let's go and talk to these people as our brothers. You know, I said it earlier on that Nigeria could have used that as an opportunity to gain more influence on the continent. But instead, they just went and played the house boy for Westerners, threatening to invade Niger. And now they pulled out. And where are they going? They want to go to Morocco again. And this is, you see the pattern is repeating itself again. It's us that are failing ourselves. We have now pushed 3 countries towards Morocco, not again. The pattern is repeating itself. And when our leaders were talking about this yesterday, I was so furious because you know what they were saying, the argument to trying to reach out to Mali and the rest is like they're saying, oh, don't reach out to them so that they don't go into the arms of the Russians and all the rest. It's like, you are in the arms of the West for decades now. What good has it done you? What good has it done? Look at how poor African countries are. I saw how they are bombing Gaza and all the rest, and I'm looking at the hospitals there. And look at the hospitals in Sudan. Look at the hospital in many African countries. Not that good at all. And these leaders want to hug the West as if the West is doing anything for them. And this is a problem on the continent. We will blame the North. I'm not sure we should, because if you look at what is happening in sub-Saharan Africa, we are the ones that are not pulling our weight. Just like if you look at in America and in Brazil, I don't know what is happening within our communities. We don't seem to be in charge of our community. We don't seem to be controlling the fate of our people. Maybe it's our elites that have betrayed us all. Like in Nigeria now, I believe that is the elites that have betrayed us because the Europeans groomed them. They never really purged them. That we never really had a revolution to purge the leadership. 3 generations of grooming can lead to the kind of behavior you see on the continent right now. Because the other day, the president of Nigeria was able to say that he was willing to train Nigerians to go overseas and work for foreigners. That if they need more Nigerians, he's going to train more and send them over there. Who does that as a nation? You know, so there's a lot of problems on the continent, and I believe that this is why I think the voice of, you know, African Americans or the diaspora coming into the continent, even we now in Nigeria know that we that are overseas have to come to Nigeria and change things. We have to work with people in Nigeria to change things. This is the problem we are all facing. It's not, if I look at the problem, it just seems the same everywhere. So whoever will give you what you want, you work with them. And the idea that our African leaders are still thinking that you work with the West until you die is crazy. You have to look for alternatives. If this, that's why these African countries have left. One of the reasons they gave was that West Africa has betrayed the Pan-African dream. That's what Niger, Burkina Faso, and Mali said. That they betrayed it. What ECOWAS is supposed to represent, that these leaders have betrayed it. And they are still doing it till today. They have not changed. So we have a struggle on our hands, and that is our inheritance. Unfortunately, we have to find our way through this thing. If it's to vote for a Republican, I would say if you want to vote for a Republican, ask what they are going to do for you. If they're not going to do anything for you, don't bother. What is the point?
Hey, to Nigel, are you a Pan-African, to Nigel?
You can describe me as that. I'm a Pan-African, but I don't know the history as well as most of, you know. I cannot say I know the history.
Okay, to Nigel, are you married to a non-black woman?
No.
Okay.
Oh, very quickly, Mr. Sandman, I need you to cam up in queue so I can bring you onto the live. Just cam up in queue momentarily, and then I will bring you into the live. But yes.
So let me ask you.
I'll bring you into the live.
So say you have a Pan-African.
Okay.
He's contributing. He's doing a great job in the name of Pan-Africanism, doing very well, making an impact on the community. But he marries a non-black woman. You're saying he's no longer a Pan-African.
A Pan-Africanist. Not in my book. No, I wouldn't take him. No, he wouldn't be a pan. He would be, in my view, a frustrated integrationist. I mean, you're asking.
I'm not sure that can disqualify somebody from being a Pan-Africanist.
Well, I mean, the reason why I would make that argument, and I don't know if Dwayne would agree with me, but if you are truly committed to the liberation and salvation of the African nation, and you truly believe in loving your people and working and struggling to, of course, restore ourselves to our traditional greatness, then there would be no greater commitment than to commit your life to a Black woman, a member of the same race.
But the product of an interracial relationship could be a Pan-African, though.
Well, yes, and we know this. This is taking place. A good example would be T. Thomas Fortune, for example. A good example would be Dr. Anna Julia Cooper, Mary Church Terrell. These things, and we don't blame the child for how they got here. Our focus is on not how dark your skin is, but how dark and Black your mind is. We care about if you are African psychologically, right? Because we come in all shades and colors.
So even Mufasa Shabazz in the chat room says, see, Mufasa, call in Mufasa. Call in. Dwayne, what are your thoughts on that? I just Dwayne, just me personally, I think sometimes some people move the what is a Pan-African goalpost sometimes. That's just me personally.
Could you provide an example of someone doing that?
I just brought up Kwame Nkrumah.
And everyone, we were lockstep in unison that what he did was unbecoming. It was considered a sin from a Pan-Africanist standpoint, and he even admitted that it was a sin and it was wrong.
I think the reason why maybe he probably regretted it because he did it for political reasons.
Right, everybody knows that.
Yeah, but
that's why he regretted it. But it's not because he married another.
Who? So, but the lady he was married to was she like the daughter of the president, or who?
Yes, she was. She was the daughter of Nasir.
Oh, okay.
Yes, okay. She was his daughter.
Yeah, that's horrible.
Yeah,
marrying somebody because of political reasons. I don't think that's a good idea.
And he said that it was a mistake. He regretted it.
Yeah, it's horrible.
That's what I said. Like, if you actually know the situation, like, yeah, she was his daughter.
Yeah, that doesn't look right at all. You see, for me anyway, if you are Pan-Africanist and you are doing everything to benefit the African continent and the Black community generally, I don't think your relationship should matter. Otherwise, you rule out some,
listen,
same-sex people and all the rest.
Here's the thing that the people would say. You can't sleep white but talk Black.
Pan-Africanism is not necessarily talking Black. It's talking Black community's progress.
I mean, I don't know. I've never met some. So even people who aren't Pan-Africans, even people who aren't Black-minded. For example, when I was an undergrad, there was an organization called the Mufasa. Just turn your camera on very quickly, then we'll bring you in. Okay, very good, brother. There was a integrations organization called the Ohio Student Association. So there was a sister that I was cool with. She told me that there was a brother in the organization who said he was a Pan-Africanist, but he was married to a white woman. So she was like, I don't even know much about Pan-Africanism, but I know that is contradictory. I was like, exactly. Common sense tells you that.
But like Biden now claims to be a Zionist. He's not Jewish. So you can see that it's possible to support a cause and be called as a member of that cause, but not be part of the racial identity that is associated with that cause. You see what I mean? So I'm not sure just because you are married to a non-Black person should disqualify you, especially if you're a Black man or woman, should disqualify you from being a Pan-Africanist.
Well, so I would say this too, Nigel. Every Pan-African or Black national organization I've been part of, if you were in a relationship with a non-African person, you were not allowed to be in the organization.
Yeah, that would be that would be like that would be like, I think that organization would be more of a Black you want to describe it as a kind of something that is associated with Blackness, not necessarily Pan-Africanism, because Africa is quite diverse from that point of view, except you want to completely give up North Africa and quite a significant chunk of East Africa. So that is this thing. And Pan-Africanism, even the African American community is quite diverse. If you want to do it, if you want to make it deeply Black, You could have a problem with some
Go
groups in
ahead.
the African American
Mr.
community.
I think someone else wanted to speak.
Yeah, no, I was just going with what you were saying. You were saying that it's like the highest thing you can do is to marry a black woman. What was your reason that it makes you not Pan-Africanist again?
Well, I said, so when you read literature on Pan-Africanism, starting with David Walker's Appeal, which was the first written Black Nationalist manifesto, a Pan-Africanist manifesto, he speaks ill of it. And one of the core themes of Pan-Africanism is an aversion to miscegenation and interracial relations.
And then how are you defining Pan-Africanism? Because it seems
so yes, so there's typically two strains of Pan-Africanism: Pan-African socialism or Pan-African nationalism. I'm a Pan-African nationalist.
Okay, Pan-African nationalism meaning what?
Pan-African nationalism meaning an advocacy for not only racial solidarity, but also an autonomous nation state in which African people are able to not only politically, but also economically govern themselves.
Where does interracial dating contradict that?
Well, because it's rooted in race first, right? Part of the philosophies and opinions of Marcus Garvey is, of course, race first. And of course, this goes all the way back to David Walker's Appeal. And so we find it's an aversion because we're looking at things from a race first, always bet on black. That's one of my mantras. It is seen as antithetical.
Yeah, but I feel like there's a lot of different things. There's 13 areas of people activity and Lily Fuller's explanation of things.
Right.
And you don't have to be black in all of them to be an effective.
Well, I don't know if Nellie Fuller was a Pan-Africanist. I mean, I know he was.
I don't know either, but I just like how he breaks. I like how he breaks down people activity. I'm not addressing his philosophy.
Okay,
but I'm saying in the different areas of people activity, politics, economics, sex, labor, war, etc. I'm saying you don't have to be totally black in each one of them, because I've heard some of your like, do you want to be married, Lumumba?
Yes.
Okay, did you change that? Because I remember you kind of saying some things about you didn't like the laws and child support. And
right, yeah, I agree. But would I like to be married? Would I like to be married and have a life partner one day? Absolutely.
Despite the laws, despite all that.
I mean, I don't know if I want to do it here, but I would want to be married to someone for the rest of my life.
Okay, so somewhere else. Because with the point I was going to get to, if you're saying that if you get with another race, that makes you not Pan-Africanist, because marriage is a high, I forget your exact words, but basically marrying to someone and committing to a black woman is like the highest thing you can do. Then what does it say to all these men who are single and are not married? Can you be a Pan-Africanist and not be actively trying to make that high commitment? If it's so important to Pan-Africanism, how can you be single for years, not trying to even get married?
I'm glad you answered that question. But you don't just marry anyone. You have to marry someone who shares your values, life goals, and that you actually are able to connect with. So just because there's an advocacy for developing families, doesn't mean that you just go out and marry anyone. Right. No. I mean, I've been married before, right? I filed for divorce because that person was not someone I could be married to any longer. That doesn't mean that I wasn't being a Pan-Africanist. You have to actually also make sure that you're in relationship with someone who you're able to be relatable with.
No, I understand, but the point I'm making is that if you can do it, if you can be a Pan-Africanist and be single, then you should be able to be a Pan-Africanist and date a white person.
Well, I think that's a false equivalency.
But no, but the point is that neither you can work towards the goal that you defined as Pan-African nationalism, which I agree with, and I also see myself in that way. And I don't date a white woman, for the record. I know someone's going to ask, and I don't believe in necessarily. I don't believe in doing that. I don't believe in doing that. But where I see an issue, there's a lot of very useful black men out here who date other races of people.
Absolutely.
And they're more. Like, I'll give you an example. Last month,
I'm friends with some, and they give me good advice, so on and so forth.
Last month in my business, I took on 2 months ago. I took on 2 clients that are dating white people, one female, one male, and both of them chose me over other options because I was black.
Okay.
Right? Them doing that is a higher form of Pan-Africanism than a lot of people who date black would do. Right? If they're now, I don't know if they're Pan-Africanists, but let's say they were. We can't throw the baby out with the bathwater on this little white thing because people are in their feelings.
No, it's not in our feelings. Like I said,
it's in the feeling. How does it contradict the definition you gave?
Once again, as I stated, going back to the earliest written text on Pan-Africanism, this was one of the core tenets of Pan-Africanism. Like I said, You could be someone who advocates and does things great for the black community and black people and marry outside your race. One of my best friends is married to a white woman. I joke about him with him all the time, but he's giving me great advice. He's loaned me money before, etc. Right? It just means that he's not a Pan-Africanist. That's all.
But what I don't see, why are we limiting that? Like, why can't he be
I'm not sure it's even
it's not limiting. Whenever you are defining something, right? Part of that definition is based on what are the values that are congruent with that said beliefs or value or ideology, and that is one of the values. It's anti-miscegenation,
that could be dangerous. Actually, what you are doing could lead to divisions, even on the continent. Sometimes when you have conversation with Somalis, they will say Pan-Africanism is Pan-Bantuism. And you don't want like North Africans or East Africans or some parts of Africans to start saying it's Pan-Bantuism. And that could lead to fracturing of the community. And if you look at even in the African American community, there are people that are actually admixed. If you start doing that, you will start hearing situations whereby others that are more darker will be like, no, those ones don't fit. They are too mixed. You start having problems.
And I'm going to stop you there because Pan-Africanism, one, is anti-tribalism, and you're speaking of tribalism, and anti-colorism. As I stated, some of the fathers and mothers of the Pan-African movement were people who were lighter hue, mixed racial ancestry. Oftentimes that mixed racial ancestry was due to sexual assault, right? But nevertheless, we base that if you have African parentage, and are you psychologically African? Right, so I mean, those are just the core tenets of the ideology.
You are limiting it to the way you see it.
No. I'm not. No. Hold on real quick. I'm not. This isn't based on what Lumumba is saying. This is based on the literature dating back to 1829. I'm not that brilliant. I have the books right above my head. And this isn't what I'm saying. This is what Black African people have been saying since the first written Black Nationalist Manifesto was written in 1829 by David Walker.
I think what in practice, what is happening is that they always brought North Africa into it. So North Africa is not exactly your typical Black person. So there is what they say on paper and how they practice it. And if we look at every other movement that has moved in this kind of way, it's not limited. They didn't limit themselves based on a specific race. If you have anybody from another race that signs up to the ideology, they will sign up.
Pan-Europeanism, the European Union, we know this is why we have white supremacy, Pan-Arabism, Pan-Asianism. So this is something that we do find. Even if you look at some of the fledgling indigenous movements in America amongst what we call Native Americans. So this is something that we do see around the world.
Like there was this, I think when this boys thing that they had in America, they said one of the members was whether African American or married to an African American, this lady, even if he was representing things that are associated with white supremacist this behavior. So my point is that if you do that, especially within our community that is very, very diverse, it's so diverse, even in the Latino and South American communities, you could start having problems where people start saying that person doesn't fit, especially if you go on the continent where they are very, very tribal. You start seeing that.
Well, like I said, I don't know if you say that you're not very well read on Pan-Africanism, but if you knew, if maybe you should do some reading on Pan-Africanism, you know that Pan-Africanism is anti-tribalism. So it's anti that. That's why the Pan-African language is considered Kiswahili, because Kiswahili isn't connected to a particular ethnic group, right? It's spoken by a number of different African ethnic groups, and a number of different African nations. So I would argue, brother. If you say somebody I would argue humbly that you should ingratiate yourself more with the literature on the history of Pan-Africanism. So that
I'm see, the way I think is that I don't, for me, I'm sorry to say, I don't subscribe to people this in just documents. It's what I believe I say. And if but
we're talking about Pan-Africanism, so we want to make sure, of course, on my platform, we want to make sure that we're making claims that are factual, right? Fine. Not rooted in hyperbole, not conjecture, not our individual feelings, but facts. Like we stated, I have my personal views on what Kwame Nkrumah did, but we're having that conversation needs to be rooted in fact. And so to do that, particularly when you're having an intellectual conversation, you should ingratiate yourself with the literature on a particular subject matter, particularly reputable literature from a substantial source.
But this is the thing, Lumumba. there's Pan-African writings in the past, or things you can read, but the two of you, if I'm not mistaken, are Pan-African writers. So this is a moving, breathing ideology. And the time now is different than the time back then. So it was easy to date outside your or inside your race exclusively. And you would look at people who dated outside of their race differently in the 40s than you'll look at them today. We're growing up. I grew up in San Diego, California, totally integrated with other races
619,
in
right?
school and all.
619, right?
619,
Okay,
100%.
yeah.
Totally integrated with other people in schools or whatever. And I learned over the course of my life, everywhere I've worked, everywhere I went to school, everywhere I went, the people, the men and women that you put them together in those environments will have sex, regardless of race.
So
right?
can I
That's just the
speak to
reality.
that? Can
So
I speak to
but,
that?
but I say that to say you keep referencing these old writings that it's a different time now.
Well,
so we have to update some of that stuff.
Okay, so I would say this.
Exactly.
I would say this. So of course I grew up. I was in high school in the 90s and the early 2000s. Shout out to the 99 and 2000, right? And so I went to school with members of different racial ethnic groups. But once again, I didn't choose to be in relationships with them. Right. So once again, it just comes down to ideology. Just because you're in community with a person based on your values, that doesn't mean that you don't engage in particular behaviors. Right. So that's something to consider. The second issue is that what we tend to find is that when you bring non-Black people into these type of spaces, it causes problems, it causes confusion, causes issues regarding identity. We tend to find, and there's been a number of individuals who have written on this: Malcolm X, Stokely Carmichael, Kwame Ture, also known as Kwame Ture, Assata Shakur, even Nelson Mandela, who many consider to be the Martin Luther King of Africa, have written that it doesn't work for African people. From a political standpoint, from an organizing standpoint, from a social and community standpoint, it doesn't work. So something to consider. But the question here in the chat is, do you believe there should be a Pan-African language, or Pan-Africanisms stick with English? Well, most argue that the Pan-African language is Kiswahili, to answer your question.
Well, I tend to lean towards I tend to lean towards that culturally that Africans in the diaspora should only marry within themselves racially, because I see our plight as Africans or descendants of Africans similar to the plight that's been going on with the Asians in China and other Asian countries like Japan and Korea, and where they're trying to build up themselves culturally to be able to compete with the rest of the world on a global scale, economically and technology wise. And if you look at their standards when it comes to culturally, they have really strict standards when it comes to dating outside of their race. If you were to go to China or Japan, you would very rarely see an Asian woman or an Asian man married to a white man, or a Black man, or anyone outside of their of themselves culturally. So if you want to really stamp down and define yourself culturally, then you're going to have to marry within your race culturally.
And I'm glad you brought that up, brother, because this is something to consider, that 85% of the world's population practices homogeneous marriage in procreation. So globally, the norm is that people marry members of their own racial and ethnic group. So just something to consider there. I'm glad you brought that up. I think
Asians marry white people all the time, bro. I don't know.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, but
Asians
not
marry white
here
people
in America. Here in America,
outside
white men and Asian women they marry and date and procreate outside of their race more than anyone else. White men and Asian women here in America.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So why would you support that? That's patently false, which is against your rules. He's saying that they don't do that. When they do it, that's like the highest.
No, they do that in America. Covenant. But if you was to go to China, that is not accepted as a Chinese.
Bro, there's nothing really in China but Chinese people. These are homogeneous societies.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
They're not as diverse as these societies.
What I'm saying is those people are outcasts by their own culture when they date and marry outside of their culture.
And I spoke on that.
Chinese anymore.
No, I spoke on that.
If you were to date and marry outside of your race, you would not be considered.
Hold on. I think I don't know where Lumumba got his information, though, but from what I gather, Pan-Africanism is supposed to be a political movement that doesn't necessarily even exclude other races from being Pan-Africanist. I think somewhere along the line it became Pan-Blackist, and on the continent, that is what he is saying. He doesn't understand that on the continent it plays differently. If you start doing that, you're going to hemorrhage at least 1/3 of the continent out of it. And that is a problem. You don't want to do that. And I've given an example where Zionists can be of almost any group. They will, as long as you believe in the ideology. The ideology is what should matter. Not to mention saying that just because a black man or a black woman is dating someone or married to some other ethnic group, that person cannot be called a Pan-Africanist. That doesn't sound right.
Well,
because you are basically damaging the community. Because
I don't see how that damages.
Hold on, let me say this because this is very, very important. I saw the pain in Candace Owens' face when she was discussing that stuff, and I think a lot of people malign her because she has some views that are controversial, but she cares about the community too. And I don't understand why you just say, okay, that person is not allowed to be Pan-Africanist. It's not right.
Well, so hold on.
We're worried about people's emotions.
I need you to come up in the queue, and then I'll bring you on the live. And brother Biquilon J Africa states, why are you fighting to marry outside of your race? So that's a good question. So let's answer that question. Why are people fighting to marry outside of your race? And brother Biquilon,
I'm not fighting to marry outside the race.
Fighting to do that.
Yeah, let me answer the question. I was saying I'm not fighting to marry outside the race. I don't believe in that. I don't believe in teaching that. But I understand that it's going to happen. And I don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater and say, okay, we can't accept anything from these people. We have to unnecessarily castigate these people in this very small issue when over like near 90% of the time we're marrying inside the race. And then we're blowing up this thing to be way bigger than it is, when we could just have these people and still use these people, still use their children, still fold them into blackness and use those resources. Why give it up over something petty?
Well, so once again, so I'm glad you stated that. I never stated that you castigate the person. I never said that you don't work with them. All I said was that by definition, they are a Pan-Africanist based on their behavior. That's all I said.
No, but you're okay. So you need to change your definition and add that in.
No, I'm not going to change the definition.
No. Your definition doesn't describe how you date. Your definition describes an end that we want to reach to. And there's different means to get to an end. There's different means. I don't see that as something a few people date interracially. So damn what, dude? Every single time a black person dates interracially, the other race dates interracially. It's like a zero-sum game.
Right, and it doesn't benefit us.
It's something that we spend so much time worried about. It's not
you can't speak white and talk black.
Yeah, but you can work white. You can work white. You can buy white products. You can do all these other things white. But this one thing, because of emotionalism,
it's not emotionalism.
It's just a deal breaker.
It's not emotional.
It's a deal breaker.
It's
you
not.
can
It's
work
not
for white people. You work in white institutions. You buy white products. You do white stuff all damn day. But this one thing is just a deal breaker.
Well, once again, it's not emotion. Okay, like I said, this is based on principle, not feelings. Right? As I stated before, it is incongruent with the ideology, with the core tenets of the ideology and value system. The second issue is what we tend to find when individuals are in interracial relationships. It tends to obfuscate, right? They tend to all of a sudden take a softer stance on repudiating and fighting against the very entity that's causing our oppression, right? So we know that oftentimes after, when there's miscegenation that takes place, then the children have identity issues. The classic example of this is the case of the tragic mulatto, who questions their identity and who they are for the entirety of their life. So there are a number of issues that go into this. Also, we look at in Brazil and many aspects of Latin America, there's a concept known as bloqueamento, where they actually are promoting miscegenation to try to miscegenate black people out of existence, right? And a good example of this we can see was with Patrick Mahomes' father, a black man who was a pitcher for the Minnesota Twins. He marries a white woman. His son is extremely fair-skinned. His son has a child with a white woman, and now that child looks like it's 100% white. Now, we know the child, of course, is a quadroon, but from a phenotypical standpoint, the child is white. There's a high likelihood, because of the fact that they are seeking to be in relations with white people, that they are going to be promoting the concept of black consciousness and black identity in the home. So then the child would then go out and continue to engage in miscegenation, and before you know it, that black family doesn't even exist anymore. So these are real issues that we find African people facing globally, where miscegenation is used as a weapon against our ability to continue to exist.
So North African Pan-Africanists are not Pan-Africans. They are not Pan-Africanists.
No, they are not.
I just
want
to. Is not Pan-Blackism.
I just want to say something quick. I want to just
hold on. Yeah, go ahead, Great African. Go ahead, Great African.
Okay, good. I just want to come in quickly, and then I'm going to drop off and watch the rest of the show. Um, the When it comes to the interracial stuff, right? I think, and this is coming from somebody that is married to a black woman that has 5 beautiful children. Um, I think that who somebody dates is way down the list on the totem pole. When it comes to Pan Africanism, what I'm hearing tonight just say he's looking at things from a continental standpoint. Where, for example, what that leads to is when we talk about Pan Africanism, I think it's Pan Blackism. It's black people, the cultural and political unification of black people on the continent and worldwide. Period. So
Yeah.
on the continent of Africa, we have an identity crisis in that we are inclusive of Arabs who originally came into Africa as invaders. To the extent that, for example, Morocco, where a black person that looked like me goes to Morocco, I'm treated like crap. I don't even go through Morocco. I don't take Air Morocco because they treat Africans that are even in transit like crap. So those are not people that we are going to unite with culturally or economically just because they happen to be on the continent. So,
Right.
for example,
Good point.
okay, the when we look at the situation with Haiti, basically somewhat being denied membership, a country that's 95% where the descendants of Africans live are there. They don't have the right to come into the African Union. Like, hold on, baby. They don't have a right to come into the African Union because they're not on the African continent. So it's not about the continent. It's about the people. Wherever they find themselves, wherever you find yourself as an African, you can be a Pan-Africanist. Most, contrary to popular belief, most, and I believe somebody alluded to that, maybe it was Lumumba speaks, the vast majority of black people marry other black people.
Correct.
So if we focus on uniting culturally um, with our people, then the few that okay, I'll come upstairs, baby. If we focus on uniting those people, like our people, then if we get 50% of our people that look like us to be Pan-Africanists, we'll be going so far that that little amount of people who marry outside of the race, it won't really matter. So that's just 2 points that I just wanted to make. I think sometimes we get too emotional when it comes to the interracial dating, and then sometimes we look at the African continent and think that just because you're on the African continent, you're actually a black African. There's a difference.
Right. Absolutely.
Look at the African Cup of Nations recently. The Arabs that were in Ivory Coast, thankfully all of them are eliminated. Some of their fans were insulting black Africans.
Absolutely.
So those are not people that we can unite with just because they happen to be on the African continent. So
right.
let me,
and if I could, that's one of the things that Brother Biquan mentioned, that was one of the mistakes that we learned from in history from Kwame Nkrumah, that you can't unite with Arabs just because they're on the African continent, right? And when we talk about this concept of race first, that was the ideology of Marcus Garvey, race first. Right, we focus on race first, rather than just the location of where someone is living.
Right.
How about we start looking at
then
things?
maybe we should change the name from African, because Africa is a different thing altogether. That is a whole continent.
It's a continent, but what we are the majority of the continent is black African. So we use the term Africa, to relate to people that look like everybody on this panel. That's what we're talking about, and we claim it just because we have. Okay, you can be light skinned or whatever, but what I'm saying is, just because we had invaders that occupy a certain region of Africa, okay, and they're settled there for 1,500 years, doesn't mean that we lose our identity and we can't. We own the continent. Okay, we were invaded and we're under occupation in certain areas of the continent, but it doesn't mean that we have to give up our Africanness.
we also have to be careful of calling North Africans all Arabs. Most of them are not Arab. They are Berbers and North
Yeah,
Africans.
there are some who
They
are
have
Berbers.
been there for
if
thousands
they
of
are
years.
black, okay, if they are black, if you're a black man, there are black people all over North Africa. You have the Nubians, you have the Sudanese that are also, so like the Nilotes, they're also part of North Africa. But at the end of the day, when I talk about Pan-Africanism, I'm not talking about Arabs.
Right.
Yeah, it's
I'm
for
not talking about
black people
Arabs.
only.
I'm talking about black
Pan-Africanism is for
people.
black
And just to
Africans.
speak on that, most people may not know, but historically, Arabs were the ones who taught anti-blackness to Europeans.
Correct.
Right. So
The
just
Arab,
from a historical standpoint, and we know anti-blackness dates back to antiquity, but that's just something
I
to
hear
consider.
all that, but that is based on even in Nigeria they teach against other tribes. In African countries, look at
Right,
what
but
they do
we're
to
not talking about
Nigerians in South
tribalism.
Africa.
We're
No,
not
we're-
talking about
okay, look
tribalism.
at what they do to Nigerians in South Africa, even. So, the idea that just because some people express animosity towards the other is not the reason that a movement cannot work. If you go to the Jewish community, you see how they treat the Ethiopian Jews. It still doesn't mean they are not Jews, but we
Well,
have
no,
to be
it
careful
doesn't
of
mean
the
they're
way
not
that
Jews. But here's the
some
thing.
Ethiopians are
This
Jews.
is we as black
So
people,
that's
we
the
as black
argument
people,
they make.
Nigeria is not a Pan-African.
we
Simple. Don't let
we
us argue about this thing. True
we
Nigeria
as
is not a Pan-African. It's as simple as that.
we
Pan-Africanism is a society. And just like every other society, just like you said, there's the political aspect of it. Yes, but there are also other aspects of it that makes up a society that makes it Pan-Africanism. So in order to be a Pan-Africanist, I'm sorry, there are some steps, there are some things, there are some laws we have to follow. In order for you to be a Pan-Africanism, you have to be a Bantu, yes. You have to be a Nilotic, like you said, yes. In order for you to be a Pan-African, you have to be all that. What you're doing through Nigeria is you are trying to fight for other people that have no concern to do with you. We are talking
actually you are
about
mistaken. You from your
sir.
from your this thing. Some African Americans are not even going to fit that definition.
Of course, because
no
somebody is
listen,
black, does
listen.
not mean that they're going to be a
We
Pan-African.
are
Because
listen.
you're
One thing
black
that
does
we
not mean
have.
they're going to be a
You are
Pan-African.
limiting
One mic,
Let's
one
be
mic,
careful.
one mic. Hold on. Let the brother respond. Let the brother respond. With the brother, you got the hat on. Go ahead and respond to his question.
Because you're black does not mean you're a Pan-Africanist.
Correct.
Because you're from Nigeria does not mean you're a Pan-Africanist.
Correct.
Correct.
In order for you to be a Pan-Africanist, there are sets of laws and rules and morals and folklore you have to know and follow.
Correct.
To Nigeria, you are not a Pan-Africanist, you're a multiculturalist. So if I was to build a nation, you are not going to be involved in it. You are not going to be invited in it.
Do you know what you've just said just now?
You can interpret it however you want to interpret it.
You have not
I
succeeded.
know what I am saying.
If that was the approach, the truth is that the true Pan-Africanists never operated the way you are talking.
And nobody
That's
told
why
you
you
that.
have North African Pan-Africanists. You have Pan-Africanists from a lot of other communities. In practice, that is not how they operate. And I actually checked it just now.
But you don't know anything about
Pan-Africanism is a
Pan-Africanism.
political movement.
I've heard you talk here many
So-
times. You don't know anything about Pan-Africanism.
Let me just finish my
What
point.
you're doing is emotionalism. You're talking based on your emotions and you're talking based on your
Hold on,
fantasy.
one mic. Brother, go ahead. You can provide your retort. Go ahead.
Do you want me to talk or would you want to talk?
Yes, go right ahead.
You know what I'm saying? To Nigeria, you might be almost Nigerian near, almost Yoruba near, but you are not a Pan-Africanist. You are
can
not.
Call me whatever you like. I don't
You get
care.
what I'm saying?
What matters
And you
is
can
what
have
works.
whatever emotions you want. You get what I'm saying? You can interpret Pan-Africanism however you want. But those of us who are Pan-Africanists, they have read, they have done our own soul searching. They have looked at the world just not based on the reality of others, but based on our own reality and our own understanding of it. We understand that what our ancestors put down as Pan-Africanism is right and the laws of it is right. So if I am to build a Pan-African society today, you are not going to be involved. I don't even want to be near you.
See, you can say
It's
how
as simple as that. There's no.
You see
You can interpret it
the
however
problem
you want
you
to
have just
interpret
highlighted
it.
Daji, hold on. All right, one mic.
Anything that is good for our people.
One mic.
You don't know what is
I
good
wanna
for our
make a-
people. You can't know what is good for our people, but yet you are fighting for other people who are known to be your enemy.
Let's
All right,
You
hold
are
on.
the
All
few.
right,
You are the
let's
ones.
see
Let
what
me say
one
something. I'm gonna let it go.
solutions.
You are those people. You are those Nigerians, those Africans that sided with the Europeans.
All right, hold on. One mic. I'm going to let Tendaji. You've been waiting patiently. I'm gonna let you speak, and then we're gonna pass it over to Wisdom Never Sleeps.
Brother, don't skip Jay Lumumba. He's been waiting too.
Oh, and brother Jay Lumumba. I'm sorry, Jay Lumumba as well. So Tendaji, Jay Lumumba, Wisdom Never Speaks.
To Dodge, you got to mute yourself.
You got to unmute yourself.
Okay, pass it to Jay Lumumba.
Jay Lumumba, go right ahead. Yeah, there you go.
Hey, peace and blessings, everybody. This has been a great conversation as far as I've been able to hear. I did have something I wanted to respond to Tunaja earlier, but I couldn't join. I was just listening. So in regards to this, I'd rather other people go ahead and finish their thoughts on it, because Tunaja had a good question, I thought, that didn't really get addressed as far as African Americans starting or not starting their own political parties in the United States. And I thought it really related well to the Pan-Africanist question and voting Republican or not. So you guys can decide whether or not I should respond to that now or just.
No, please, you go right ahead. Go right ahead. Go right ahead.
Okay. But yeah, so the short answer to Naja is yes, we have started our own political parties in the United States. Whether they were Pan-Africanists or not, they were Black, and pro-Black and Black empowered focus. But your question is good because a lot of people ask that question of independence, whether we happen to be Black or not, whatever our politics happen to be. And the short answer to that is the United States is not designed to allow breathing room to third parties. It's a bicameral system, both within the structures of the state and the throughout the nation. That's why you got this.
Can I briefly speak to somebody? The question about Black people not starting, political organizations. The Lowndes County Freedom Organization, created by Kwame Ture, also known as Stokely Carmichael, is a great example of a Black political organization. They started this organization in Lowndes County, Alabama, and they were actually successful. They ran their own candidates, funded their own candidates, and I believe in the 1970 election in Lowndes County, they won every single election that they put a candidate up for. So this is an example of Black political empowerment. But as we know in America, whenever there was Black success, even real or even perceived success or progress, is followed by a period of racial retrenchment. So just something to be cognizant of. But that speaks to that question of, Black people didn't create political organizations. We did, and most of those political organizations were destroyed by the white hegemony, white supremacist power structure, because we know the reality in America is that the only freedom Black people actually have in this country is to self-destruct. Go right ahead.
And just to thank you. Just to follow up on that particular example, that organization, that was a political organization, Lowndes County Freedom Organization. And then you have a political party, the Mississippi Democratic Freedom Party.
Yes, yes, absolutely, yes. Fannie Lou Hamer, absolutely.
And to even drive that home a little bit more, that was still on the books when Lumumba ran for mayor. That party still existed, and that's actually the party I'm talking about. The senior who passed.
Yes, I know you're talking about. Yes, 2013.
Not his son who's currently.
Yes.
And so the senior used that political party once he found out it was still on the books, and he's a Black nationalist, a revolutionary.
Pan-Africanist, open Pan-Africanist.
Yeah, absolutely. So he used, once he found that out as a lawyer that it was still on the books, he used that party to run. And so that's a good example of successful Black politics. But the issue with it is to expand that into a viable third party to beat the Democrats and the Republicans. You have to have a situation where that political organization and or party now gets a national vote of at least 1%. So when people say, why you're voting for a third party, let's say the Green Party or the Libertarians or whatever, and they say, you're throwing away your vote. It's not necessarily the case that you're throwing away your vote if you're building that party. But a lot of Black people in the United States don't have a party building mentality when it comes to voting. So, because that's a long game. They just I want to get the person in office who I want at the time. So we don't vote that way. We don't vote as a block to say we're going to build our own political party over time, because that's what it would take. You would have to continue to vote and support a national candidate that would allow you to have ballot access in the state. But because we don't have civic education to that degree for our people, we don't understand it. So we just vote for Democrat or Republican. We might support a political organization locally that can maybe get a local seat. But as far as building our own political party, we haven't had the civic education to get to that point. We could get there, but we just haven't gotten there yet. We have the history of successful organization, but we don't have the history of successful civic organization from generation to generation to build a third party in the United States system. We can do it in Africa because it's different. As you mentioned, I forgot what you mentioned Israel, but I mean, we could use African countries as an example where they have a situation where you can have an election and you can get a third party representation in your parliament, but you can't get that in the United States because it's winner takes all. So you could get 25% of the vote for your third party, but you got no representation in Congress. So it's a different system by design. So we either have to change the system or change the way that we organize in the United States. But my preference as a Pan-Africanist is that we just take that energy to Africa and build there. So that's it. That's it.
A question, brother, and I appreciate your soliloquy. So you said we need to change the system or change how we organize in it. Here in the United States, which one do you think we should do, and which one do you think is most feasible?
In the United States, I think the system has to be changed because it's not, by default, it's not built for us. Everything that we've gotten in the United States as African people, we fought to change the system.
Right.
So we've got to continue to change it if we want anything beneficial out of this. We can't just accept it as is.
Okay, very good. Wisdom never sleeps. You've been waiting patiently. Brother Wisdom never sleeps.
You hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Yes, we can.
Great. So, it's good when you get the dogs and the state together. It's always going to be something interesting when Ohio State and Georgia Bulldogs come together for such a time.
Put it on record. We beat Ohio State. You can put that on record.
On record,
Well,
you are lucky.
Hey, by the way, I want to ask you a question, by the way.
Okay, so let me say this while I was listening. One thing I can say is this. It seems to be a problem with people who don't want to be left out, but they also don't want to be called out. Why do I say that? I'm listening to these gentlemen talking, and there are people who says, this is what you're trying to take a jackhammer to the foundation that was already set, what they describe as Pan-Africanism. And you try to say, well, today is not like yesterday. I hear the same thing about the older generation did this and the younger generation. If the foundation is the foundation, stop trying to change it and break it up.
That's why I said
plain and simple. Plain and simple. It's not, so I'm gonna tell you a little quick story of a gentleman I talked to one time of our race, married to the other race. And during the time of the George Floyd incident, and he noticed every time that something happened to his collective people by their people, that was the only time other than great marriage would have tension. Because he thought that she loved him so much, they got through the family issues and everybody got along, that why wouldn't you speak up when my people are in pain and your people, somebody look like you, hurt them or killed them? But she wouldn't. And the same thing is that when she couldn't bring up to him about black on black crime. Those were that was the thing that was almost would tear them apart. Other than that, they had resolved everything else. So, but when it came to the collective and his passion for his people, he had to either dial back or lose the marriage for the woman that he decided to marry.
Wisdom never sleeps. That's a good point. We also tend to find the concept of cultural superiority as well, right? One of my students mentioned this, that, okay, I like this person, I'm attracted to them. They got into a relationship, they were married, and then it was okay. The anti-blackness then came out. I don't want the child to be dark skinned. I don't want the child
what Umar was talking about?
So, okay.
Right.
So another thing, and so another thing, when you go back to Patrick Mahomes, what most people either don't know or just forgot. During the same George Floyd incident, he stated something because he was raised totally by his white counterpart people in the family. He was raised totally by them. The father was not in the picture on that level. And because he was raised that way, his viewpoints was always what he was given to them, given to him, brought up by. Nothing wrong with that because that's just the way it was. but he said something that upset all of his black teammates that was like his brothers, that shocked them, and they had to sit him down and have a real deep conversation, that he had to apologize to all of them because he was insensitive based on he played with all of them coming through school, but he never knew the culture, that how they was raised, and he didn't know how things insensitive it was for what he said, because he was only raised by white folk, period. And it wasn't that he was mean, that's how it was raised, that's how he saw things, and then he had to sue it. So what I'm getting here is
What did he say? Do you know?
I forgot what it was, but it was very insensitive. I'll get it later, but I just remember the whole incident situation. What I'm getting at and what I'm hearing is this: people, listen. We are being afraid to be totally for ourselves 100%. That's all it is. This ain't say you
that
can't
is
love
why I want to
somebody,
pose this
marry
question to
some. Wait a
Lumumba.
minute, wait a minute, marry somebody else. That's all individual things. You collective people, stop bringing in these nuances. Talk about what's on the table for your people, not for your loins. I have an older brother. Let me tell you this. He hates white people because they used to chase people, like when he was older, went through all the KKK stuff. But guess what's stronger than his hate for them? His love for the coochie coochie. He was still screwing
I
a
can't
fat
help but
butt.
laugh. I can't help but laugh,
Yeah, he was still screw a fat butt black white woman. And I looked at him. I said, "What is your problem? You say you hate these people." Say, "I do. I can't stand them, but I'll still stick her." I said, "What?" I said, "Your porn brain is outweighing your whole." I'm just telling you what I've witnessed personally and seen and hear. So it's not always these people are falling in love. They lust takes over. But what I'm getting at, you don't want to be left out when things are moving, but you don't want to be called out by them that you associate with, or the people you know that associate or marry with them. So a lot of time when people say, "I'm not married to them and I don't do that," usually because they know somebody close to them that they feel close to, that they know have married and date outside that culture and race. So I'm not against who you date or whatever. But if you say you trying to tear up and recreate the meaning of Pan-Africanism, that you might as well change. You doing what the liberals are doing now, changing genders,
I can
changing
build
race,
on that.
changing all that.
Pan-Africanism.
But let me finish. You're changing things because it's today, it's this now, it's the hip, it's what it's described. But the point goes back to there's only two sexes of genders by biology and creation. So if the foundation of Pan-Africanism was created saying this what it is,
race
you can
first,
contribute. You can contribute. We appreciate it because white people marched and died to try to make black people free and all this stuff. They still jump out here for their own reasons. But they also tired of you not doing for self. That's when they turn back on you, when they help you get somewhere and you don't want to do it. The Republican thing, one thing about Republicans, they believe in a little more freedom, less government oversight, want you to work for it. They don't want all these programs to give you something to make you lazy. They want you to come to the table, have a conversation, what you want from us, what we're willing to give you, be business minded. And yes, there's political things that happen. But if you cannot be your race, your culture first in what you do and how you move, just be quiet and donate some money.
Okay,
I
I
agree.
think
I can build on that. Let
let
me
me
ask
just
you a
say
question,
this.
Hold on, wait. Tendaji, he's been waiting patiently.
Okay.
So let's pass the mic to Tendaji.
Chief, son, I'm gonna say this and then I'm gonna go. Earlier in the stream, Lumumba, you said somebody said that Pan-Africanism was the highest form of what?
Black Power. Kwame Ture, also known as Soka Carmichael, stated that.
Yeah, and to build on what the elder was saying about having a foundation, typically when somebody like Tunaja comes in and is offering opinion, we don't want to lower a standard, right? We're aiming for the highest form of what we after. We don't want to come in and say and present something to lessen the heights that we're shooting for. You know, all Europeans don't
agree with Pan-Europeanism because he referenced 1/3 of Africans being alienated from the movement, and which is why he was introducing this whole train of thought. And what we have to understand is all Europeans may not agree with Pan-Europeanism. They might want to focus more on their nationality or more local politics, but only enough need to agree and take power to push forward for what's better for their race. So I feel like it's the same thing with us. And one of the brothers was referencing, the decision to either change the political system here, go to the continent. I think we need to operate as if it won't change here, and like we still want to strive for it to change, but I think we need to work with what we have. And for me, I'm gonna vote Republican for the reasons that I choose. And with that being said, I'm gonna try to get what I can get out this system to build on the continent or wherever else in the Black world. I think that at one point the conversation kind of went into debating what Pan-Africanism is as opposed to the title, which I think is fine. Right. And I think the original definition you gave, Lumumba, was perfect. I don't think of Pan-Africanism. I don't think anybody could present it better, as good as that. And I think that the people who having a problem with that, if you was to just restate that definition, I don't know if they could find where in that definition, like what exactly they agree with. I think, Pan, let's say, Pan is a cross and African is the race. And I think Tunaja was kind of more so aligning Africa with the land, which is another conversation. But it's also implied in Pan-Africanism that we're talking about across the race. So I think that wherever we are as a people, we're dealing with African issues, and we could argue that these are Pan-African issues, whether we're talking about Democrat versus Republican here in America. And if I'm a business owner, which I am, and I see the detrimental effects that I'm facing every time a Democrat is in office, for the most part, even on my local level, it's a Pan-African issue for me to want my people to align with what I'm aligning with, especially if they want to be business owners and want to be upwardly mobile economically. So I'm gonna just end it there, and I'm gonna say that we don't need to. I don't think I think it'll be futile to try to change the political system in America. That's me personally. I'm not saying nobody shouldn't try to do that, right. But I think we should vote for our best interests. If you like labor unions, vote Democrat. Other than that, you're trying to get some money. If you're trying to have a business, the Democrats I drive trucks for a living. I own a trucking company. I have a $15,000 part up under my floorboard right here. Went to the mechanic shop, and they want $18,000 to fix it. You know what I'm saying? And that's this only because of Democrats. You know what I'm saying? Like, so this has affected me in my life.
Well, so let me ask this question. You said it would cost $18,000 to fix one of your trucks
for regulation because of pollution.
Okay, and so I think that's a good point when we talk about regulations. And so I understand oftentimes with Republicans there's less regulations, but typically most would argue less regulations hurt people down the road. Right? A good example was I forget what state it was in, but there was a documentary I watched when I was an undergrad on Walmart and how they were pushing for less regulations, and they were actually dumping toxic waste into some of the water in the community. And so people advocate and say we want to vote for someone who's going to put regulations on Walmart so they aren't dumping toxic waste into our water.
Yeah, and I think an argument can be made for that. But what I would say is I'm referencing these things in relation to Pan-Africanism and us using financial resources that we can gather here to do on the continent.
Right, I agree with that.
We still have our people here, and we have to.
Right, because environmental racism is a thing.
Right, we still have, withstanding that we still have our people here, and it's not black and white. Almost none of this is black and white.
Right,
but with more money in our pocket, we can make more change, whether it's bribing politicians through lobbying or whatever else. So I fall on that side, but I do understand what you're saying.
And one of the things I said, and this is before you came in, but this is a great point you made, is I said, as a Pan-Africanist, you should be, I would argue, not even just as a Pan-Africanist, but, the conversation about Pan-Africanism, but as someone who's politically attuned, someone who's politically mature, each candidate at the local, state, or federal level, you look at their policies. And if their policies are beneficial to our community, then I would argue you vote for them. irrespective of what party the person's in. I gave an example of a number of Republicans, black and white, who received over 50% of the black vote. We're talking about Douglas Wilder, the former governor of Virginia. We're talking about the former mayor of Cleveland and governor of Ohio, and even U.S. Senator George Voinovich. We're talking about the New Jersey governor, Thomas Keene, and then, of course, the former Pennsylvania governor, Richard Thornburgh.
I would push back. I would push back a little bit by saying I think that's ideal, but I think that's that perspective of, hey, look at these particular policies and make a decision based off that. I think it could become a little outdated probably sooner than you think, because if you look at the Democratic Party, they're you either agree with the DNC or you don't. For instance, I'm in New Orleans and looking at you may not.
So you're a 504 boy. 504.
Yeah.
Okay, I know where you at. Yeah, I've been to New Orleans. Okay.
Yeah, and so you look at the mayor. She come from California, and she can make all these promises, but at the end of the day, our city is overrun.
Oh, you said the mayor of New Orleans.
The mayor of New Orleans. Yeah.
Okay.
Latoya Cantrell.
Hey, is this the lady I got caught sleeping with a bodyguard or some shit?
I mean, I could go down the list of all the BS. Yeah, but yeah, she was sleeping with the police, giving a bunch of overtime, bunch of stuff. But they defund, there's no Republican that's doing the equivalent of defund the police. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think you make it more of an equivalence between the two, Lumumba. And
I'm just saying you have to look at the policies. For example, from what you speak of, I'm looking her up now, Latoya Cantrell. And see, I don't know her policies, but it appears that her administration has been a dumpster fire. Right.
Yeah, and she done a little bit good. She done a few things.
Okay, but I don't. The only thing I could go off, and I don't look at either political party because both political parties are funded by the same special interest groups. Right. These are historical facts. Right.
But I think.
So I look at the policies, because you can have, and a good example of this is you can have a person who's a member of a political party that actually promotes policies that are detrimental to the black community, and it could be Republican or Democrat.
So. We know in a lot of states you got to choose, and you got to choose when you get your ID or whatever at the DMV, how you're gonna, Democrat or Republican or independent or whatever.
Well, yeah, we don't have to do that in Ohio.
Okay, yeah, but the thing is, when we talking specifically about Pan-Africanism, we need to do what's in our best financial interests, because we can, talking on the internet and whatever else. We need money in our pocket to get on those planes and go to the continent or Guyana or Jamaica or wherever else.
And that is why I keep saying economical revolution.
And that's the first.
Garvey was an example of an economic nationalist. Marcus Garvey.
You know what I'm saying? And you saw, if not because of his best friend, if not because of that best friend that betrayed him,
I'm leaving
you
with
saw where that was going.
In America, the Republicans, it's not an equivalency between Democrats and Republicans. If you want, transgenderism and the bathroom shit and all these type of cultural issues and more, because most of these people don't own. Like, if you'd have talked to me,
I don't think anyone here on this platform supports that.
If you would have talked to me 8 years ago, I didn't have children, I didn't have a business. You know what I mean? So what I'm saying is, I don't think you need to look at who on the Republican side best fits your interests, as opposed to look at these different, because they have people who disagree on the Republican side and who it's more healthy as opposed to on the Democrat side where
I don't think that is what Black Americans.
You get in line or you don't.
I don't think Black Americans should be going towards anything political right now. I think Black Americans should be
like
finding a way.
Said, they're already doing politics on you regardless whether you participate or not.
Engaged.
That's
I'm
not
going
what
out.
I mean.
Peace, family.
I want to build the brother.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I think we need to be very careful with this whole LGBTQ immigration, because I'm starting to notice a lot of Black folks is running towards the Republican Party because they assume the Republican Party is going to stop immigration, stop all the LGBTQ things. We have to understand that America is run by corporations. For example, immigration,
corporatocracy.
Yeah, for example, immigration is not going nowhere whether the Republicans come or the Democrats come. You know why? Because they want cheap labor. The corporations want cheap labor. If America starts changing some of these policies, the corporations are going to pick up and leave America. So it has nothing to do with the Republican or the Democrat Party. It's the government wants immigration to continue to happen because it benefits America. So we have to be careful not to fall for the propaganda and just run into the Republican Party. And also, And I
That's a
also
good point, B. Kwan. That's a good point.
Yeah, and I always want to make this known. I'm a revolutionary Pan-Africanist. I'm not a Democrat or Republican.
Thank
But
you.
yeah, but
Welcome,
sometimes
welcome.
sometimes I think we tend to like confuse why our people kind of like gravitate towards the Democrats instead of the Republicans. There's a reason why. For example, for most Black conservative, what exactly are you trying to conserve with the Republican Party?
I
I can tell you right now.
I
Okay,
just
let me
don't
hear.
want listen. So I disagree on your 2 points. I know for a fact Trump, when it comes to the LGBT, the transgenderism, and the Republican Party for the most part, and with the border, especially with
Mhm.
Trump, he's actively trying to shut that down. Like, I don't want my son. I'm sorry. Like, I use Lumumba's daughter as an example. Lumumba.
Mhm. This is a
I
fear
don't.
mongering, by the way.
I disagree that a boy could put on a dress
I agree with
or a
you.
You
basketball
can't wait
jersey
for
and
him to
play
play
I
sports
agree
with
with
football.
Lumumba's
that.
daughter.
I agree with you. Though none of
No,
us
no,
do
you
that.
can't wait for him to play football.
Yeah, but the problem I think we're failing to realize is no party is going to come and save that from happening. That's not what. That's not how America is even like. What's the
They
word?
are
Constructed.
The Republicans are
No.
more than the Democrats. That's a
For
fact.
example, the Republicans don't even have the power to stop immigration. America needs immigration. This is literally how to like look at
No,
the
no, no,
geopolitics.
no, 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 no,
Look at
no.
their foreign
Wait,
policies.
wait,
Look at
wait, wait.
America's
Let him
foreign
I
finish,
mean,
policies.
man. Then
slavery
we
was
can
a
move on to
forced
the tour.
Let me finish.
immigration.
Let me finish.
Wait,
Real
wait,
quick.
wait.
Let me finish real quick.
One mic. Let B. Kwan finish, and then Dynast, you can provide a retort.
Yeah, we have to study America's foreign policies and geopolitics. This is very, very important. America, okay, for example, when slavery, people think America just got rid of slavery and just forget about it. No. So when slavery got away, they want cheap labor, capitalism. This is the reason why cheap labor came about. America's allowed immigration. They could have been stopped immigration whenever America actually wanted to. If they actually want to stop immigration, they could have done so a while back. They don't. They don't want to because immigration is actually helping to build the economy in America. These corporations, they want these these alien immigrants to come into America so they can pay them lower, not give them no insurance, give them no benefits. They want this to happen. The best solution for Black folks is not like trying to run to the Republicans to vote for the Republicans. Republicans' policies, there's no policy in the Republican Party that's actually going to benefit Black African people in America. No, it's not that. The only thing they're going to tell you.
Actually, sorry, go ahead. Go ahead.
The only thing the Republican Party it keeps like basically fear mongering Black folks with is the LGBTQ and the immigration, which I do have a problem with too. I don't support LGBTQ or the immigration policies in America, but the way we're going about solving the problem is wrong. It does not work like that. That's not how government works.
Do you know what I think Black Americans should do?
Hold on. I disagree because the situation right now in Chicago, it wasn't going on under Trump. The situation right now in Boston wasn't going on under Trump. So that's where I fundamentally disagree.
I mean, but there was a lot of stuff going on under Trump too. See, like we
Like
tend
what?
to act as if
Like
Trump's
what?
Trump's
Like what?
term was just like perfect. I mean, Trump. So are you saying there was no immigration problems with Trump?
Okay, so like I said, what's going on in Chicago right now was not going on under Trump.
You're choosing the example that's currently happening while Trump is not in office, as if Trump did not make mistakes while he. And by the way,
But we're talking about immigration, and we're talking about immigration and the LGBTQ.
Okay, but whenever we
right
have
now
this
we're talking about
argument, you guys
immigration.
tend to make it about personality.
Was going on currently in Chicago was not going on under Trump.
So let me say this real quick. I'm gonna interject and you all could go back. So I learned this when I was taking a class on social problems in a diverse society. This is back when I was way back in undergrad. And one of the things we learned in the course was that the American government first began to use illegal immigrants for undocumented labor during World War II, when they were taking them up to Oregon and Washington and other states to grow food for American soldiers who were at war. So there is a history of the American government, irrespective of what administration was in office, using undocumented labor, paying them below the table, cheap, lower wages. What? Because it was beneficial from a financial standpoint. And this first began during World War II. So there is a history of the American government doing that, and it was both the Republican and Democratic parties that supported that policy.
Facts.
Guys, listen. That's
a historical.
What I am hearing, there's a difference between open borders like it is now and the immigration policies that have been in place for decades. There's immigration and there's illegal immigration. There are people always coming. There are people, I know Tyson's chicken was caught taking chicken to Mexico and bringing people back to work. Just like Lumumba talking about all this stuff. There's some illegals that get caught, get deported. But there's a difference when you say ICE cannot touch them. They paying for them and they give them all kind of money to get here. Just open up the case because there was policies in place that the borders was not wide open like that. So let's not be trying to say there's no reason not to change the way you vote. I am never going to dictate how a person vote, but let's stop this nonsense excuses because we do it all the time. All the time, all the time. When you
Exactly.
see the worst things that people keep voting for, and you in the same way, the same party that gives you totally nothing at all. We're
Neither one
not
of them
saying
give us
any
nothing.
party, wait a minute, we're not
Hold
saying
on.
any
You
party
come out
gonna
with your
give
big
you or
one
save
second.
you. What I am saying to you is this: stop with that gaslighting stuff, because all you're doing, that's being soft, gentlemen. Y'all are all very bright, very educated, but you got to stop being soft when it comes to these decisive decisions for our people, for your family, and things. Stop being soft, please.
Well,
Mr.
the
Wisdom.
I think
Wikipedia
there's,
Mr.
sorry, let me
Wisdom.
definition.
just say something, please. Let me
There's
just say
nothing
something.
Black
There's a
America
false
can do
narrative
about
being
what's going on
painted.
right now.
There's a false narrative being painted here. One,
No power.
I think Lumumba said something about Pan-Asianism being only Asians. It's not true. There are different types. There is Turkish Pan-Asianism and there is Chinese
We don't
Pan-Asianism.
care.
Hold
What are
on,
you
hold
talking
on, hold
about,
on, hold
Yeah,
on.
Nigel?
We
yeah,
don't
yeah.
Let me
We
have
care.
my
We
well,
say.
don't
see,
care
Nigel,
Can
what
I
okay,
have
they
my
yeah,
say?
do. They
Can I have
have
my
what they
say?
Nigel,
want to do.
we don't care
We
about
care
you,
about
Nigel.
our own Pan-Africanism
Yeah,
right
Can I
here.
Nigel, you
just can
We
I
triggered.
care
just
about
finish what
our
I'm
own
saying?
Pan-Africanism, our own Africanness, what we are going to deal
Hold
Hold
on.
with.
on,
Let me
wait,
finish
We
what I'm
don't
saying.
I
care.
don't want to hear
one mic,
about the
Can I finish
Pan-Africanism,
what I'm
Nigel.
saying?
man.
Hold on, one mic. Hold on.
So
Hold right to Nigel,
right.
one mic. So we're not gonna go backwards. We're gonna move forward with the conversation we're having. So wisdom never sleeps. You made a point, but a Quillan, you wanted to provide a retort. Go ahead.
I kind of lost my train of thought because I wanted to respond to Nigel a little bit.
Well, no, but
Yeah, I
we're not
wanted
gonna
to
worry
make a
I
about that.
got
political
you.
No,
statement real
hold
You
on,
are
quick.
hold on.
trying to
We're
shut
not gonna
me
worry
Can I
up
about
make a
because
that.
you are
political
trying to
statement?
paint a false
We're not
narrative.
gonna worry. No, we're not gonna worry
Can I make
about
a
that.
political
You could,
statement?
but Quillan, you took issue or umbrage with Wisdom Never Sleep said you vote for Democrats, you get nothing. I
Right.
think you were gonna say you voted for Republicans, you get nothing as well.
Right. And I think it's kind of dangerous when we're making it seem as if the Republican Party is going to save black people or something. And this is the problem, like I
But
keep
now, see,
seeing
you're
with
being
most of these new
disingenuous.
black
I
We
Republicans.
didn't
got to
say that.
interject.
Wait.
That's not what
Dinus, I'm gonna let
that's
you
not what we're
provide.
saying.
Dinus, I'm gonna let you provide a retort. Let me finish and then you could provide a rebuttal.
Okay, so most of the time I listen to black Republicans speak, all I hear is LGBTQ, the whole gay stuff and the whole immigration stuff. And they assume the way to solve this problem is by just voting Republicans, as if the Republicans don't have like literally engraved racism for black people. Like this, like you cannot go no way around this. If you go to any Republican think tank, you go to their spaces and you hear how they speak about us. They plans and black Republican plans is not the same. The only thing they mainly agree on is it might be like immigration or the LGBTQ
Well,
thing.
okay, but
But the
what are black? Can
Republicans
you
are also
expand? Can you
conservative.
expand on black
Let me finish
Republican
real
plans?
quick.
No, he needs
But
to expand on black Republican plans.
let me
What are
finish
black
real quick.
Republican plans?
The problem
I'm
is
gonna
this,
lose my
guys.
train of thought.
Every
Wisdom
what
Hold
you're
on, hold
Black
doing
on.
Americans
this,
should
what
not be
you're
talking
doing.
about
Hold
political
on,
party in
wait.
America no more.
Hold
Black
on, wait.
Americans should not be
Let
concerned
B.
itself with.
Quillan finish, and then I'm
Okay.
gonna give it to Dynast. Wisdom Never
Mhm.
Sleeps, and then brother by law.
Can I make
Yes,
a
because the
political statement?
Republicans also have an economic plan.
Biola Lumumba, Biola.
Because like the Republicans also have an economic plan and like they have multiple different plans. It's not only the LGBTQ and the immigration stuff. So the conservative are also going to conserve the wealth of America, which is going to go to who? Not black people. It's going to go to the same racist people. Like we keep failing to realize that both of these parties are against black people. Like they're not for
Victim.
black people. Both of these parties, the goals of both of these parties is white domination. That's a fact. We both know that. But the fact that we keep fear mongering black people just to run to the Republican Party because of the LGBTQ and the immigrant thing, I don't think that's the best way to solve this problem that we're going through right now in America. I think we need to be more
Dynast.
critical thinkers. But that's just my
Dynast,
opinion. And I'm not a Democrat, by the way. Not a Democrat.
No. I just so number one again, the immediate problem right now that black people, especially in Chicago, have an issue with is the borders being unchecked. All right.
But
that
they make
was not.
Chicago like a sanctuary city.
It is.
Yeah.
And the people who voted for the mayor, who's a black man, told them we don't want that, and he did it anyway.
Right.
Yep.
So that I speak to what Brother Phillips stated on your channel yesterday about how no matter who you vote for, they're going to do whatever they want.
Exactly.
No. Again, under Donald Trump, it wasn't an issue. It's an issue now.
Well,
That's
I mean,
the
but even under,
problem.
hold on, but even under Trump, there were states and cities saying we will. San Francisco, as for example, during the Trump administration, said we're going to make San Francisco a sanctuary city.
San Francisco's gone.
This took
San
place even
Francisco's
under the
gone.
Trump
San Francisco's
administration.
gone. San Francisco's gone. That the West
No,
Coast.
I'm not saying, but that's something that happened under the Trump
No. But
administration.
again, the immigration issue in Chicago was not a problem under Trump. Yes or no?
Correct.
Okay. So what's the problem?
Well,
Okay,
only
so
thing I'm
is that the
stating, only
reason
thing
for
I'm
us to just
stating
vote
here
for
is
Trump?
this. Well, very quickly, is that there have been mayors creating sanctuary cities under the Trump and Biden administrations. This is nothing. This is not, like breaking news. That's all I'm saying.
No, but I understand that. But again, was this a problem on this level under Trump?
Well, it wasn't a problem until this mayor was in office.
Okay.
But the issue wasn't Trump. The issue was the mayor.
There we go.
Trump doesn't have power over the city of Chicago. The mayor does.
Can I interject? Can I interject, please?
No, that's the issue. That has nothing to do with Trump.
That's because again, I'm not a Republican. I'm voting for Trump. I'm not a Republican. Like if Nikki Haley was to win the Republican nomination, I would not. I just wouldn't vote.
But Brandon, Dynast, I've heard you call yourself a Republican before.
When I call myself a Republican.
I'm gonna look for a clip and send it to Brother Lumumba. He knows I'll send it to him. If I say, I've heard you say you're a Republican. You, Brandon, you guys are Republicans, capitalists and Republicans. And that's about we get caught up in labels. We should not be getting caught up in these labels that we do not even
exactly
control.
like especially Black America. Black America should not even be caught talking politics or Republican and Democrat right now. The only thing Black America needs to do and start studying is equity law, because that's the only standing Black American can get any rights in this country. Now, that being said,
you can't get equity law without politics.
Not politics has nothing to do with equity.
Yes, it does.
No, it doesn't, sir.
Yes.
Equity stand on its own.
How?
Because equity is getting what is rightfully yours.
How without politics?
Because
very quickly, this is the 21st century W.E. Du Bois, Booker T. Washington debate. One focused on economics, the other focused on politics.
Because when you live in a corporatocracy, in a society whereby it's all about business, it means that the politicians are always going to be funded by businesses that has interest.
Okay. Right.
So in order for you to be political, you need money to push your agenda.
Right, politics. Right, exactly.
Right. But you cannot push an agenda.
Economics come first
if you don't have money.
But that's politics.
No, it's not politics.
He's saying economics come first.
Yes, it is.
It is politics. Deregulations attracts businesses.
Yeah, but he's saying economics come first because most of these policies that we're going through right now is pushed by by people lobbying people because they have the money to do so.
The person who is going to push your policy, are you not going to pay him?
You're still going to walk into them. But you're still going to have a job.
So I could give an example of this. So in my hometown, this happened back when I was a child, but there was a mayor who allowed he took some money from lobbyists and they built so in Dayton, in Montgomery County, you have a what's it called where they take the trash and dump it?
Landfill?
Yeah, landfill. They had a landfill in one of the obscure townships in northern Montgomery County and southern Montgomery County. The mayor, who was a Black guy, golly, I can't recall his name. Maybe it's best if I don't say his name. This is back in '88 when I was like 5 years old. He took money from lobbyists and they built a landfill on the southwest side of Dayton. So not only has the property value gone down, but now because of deregulation, there are a number of people who are developing cancer as a result of the landfill being in their community. So that would be an example of deregulation having a negative effect on Black people and African people. And this is an example of environmental racism.
Right. Can I speak?
Please.
Yeah, I'm gonna say I think this is one of the fundamental debates in the Black community right now, and I think half the people is using non-participation and pretending that it's intellectually superior. You don't not participate in something. They want to fall back on, but I'm not a Democrat. But I'm not a Democrat. You don't want to be held to any standard.
Correct.
We're here, so we need to participate. You have to. And the brother saying, we need to focus on economics first. I agree, but it goes hand in hand with politics. I'm not gonna quit my job and then vote and wait on a politician to come and save me. I'm gonna work.
But what I'm saying is,
Let me finish my statement so you can know what you're rebutting. I'm gonna continue to work, and I'm gonna vote for the politician who I know is for deregulation, for example, which can bring more jobs to my place, because economics is so important. It goes hand in hand. You don't have one without the other. I mean, I don't know where you live, bro, but
I live in Los Angeles.
exactly.
Oh,
So
Los Angeles is
you got
gone. Los Angeles is gone.
you got a
So
lot of companies
what do you
leaving
mean by Los
California and
Angeles is
going to
gone?
Florida.
Huh?
You got a lot of companies leaving California going to Florida, and Ron
And Jay
DeSantis
Lumumba, we're going to get you too.
is Ron DeSantis is incentivizing companies to move from California to Florida, and some of them are moving. So it goes hand in hand with politics. And let me finish my point, though.
He's also eliminated a lot of jobs in higher education in terms of DEI, Black culture centers, etc.
I agree with that. DEI, all that shit. I mean, it's a debate, and we're gonna disagree.
So let me say this very quickly as a brief segue. So I work in higher ed, right? And my work is in Black culture centers, right? As a result of those policies, Black culture centers at public institutions don't exist anymore. And that's a problem because historically white institutions are by default white cultural centers.
Right, but I'm saying I wouldn't allow that one issue to stake on how I vote, because
hold on. It's not just that they're banning books; they're changing curriculums, right? I mean, there's a lot going on educationally that speaks to what Dr. Carter G. Woodson talked about in his book that he wrote in 1933, Miseducation.
True.
Right, that's rooted in white fragility and white supremacy. We don't want these things being taught because it makes white people look bad.
And this I've thought about these things, bro. I've given these things some thought. I'm not talking on my ass. So I always end up back at what the brother was saying, who I'm kind of half disagreeing with. Is economics is so much more important, and I'm a Pan-Africanist, so I'm gonna get this money, right? And other thing, and if I choose the other way, some things are still gonna be sacrificed. But I'm gonna get this money, and I'm gonna go to the continent and attempt to educate, or even independent schools in America. But I can, if I get the money, I can kind of build my reality around me, so where we can have a buffer in between us and some of these detrimental things that you're talking about. So I'm not saying this is going to be a utopia. What I'm saying is a lot of Black people is suffering from cognitive dissonance to where they want to say, oh, that side is bad, and they want to put their hands up. Oh, but I'm not a Democrat. So you can't hold them to any standard. They want to sit in the middle and ride a fence, right? As if that's intellectually.
Well, no, I would make the argument that it is intellectually and politically you should not join either party and make and vote based on what the policies are of the actual politicians running.
Exactly.
I mean,
if you want to go that route, yeah.
Because if you vote for any party lockstep, no matter what, they're going to realize, well, we got your vote anyway, so we don't need to do anything to benefit you.
But Lumumba, please let me interject. Let me interject real quick. Economics is not only money. Economics is about control.
That's true.
It's not about just getting money. It's about control. What do you control? What can you facilitate?
He's right.
Yeah,
so if you can control
talk about that a lot.
If you can facilitate if you can facilitate anything, politics is rubbish. Now,
that's not true.
Okay, but hold on. Let me finish, because you guys please bear with me. I want to say some things, and it might not come as smoothly as you guys. But I think that part of the miseducation is the fact that Black America is always facing America, right? When I think it would be more beneficial if Black America, if this was possible, could face a country like Nigeria, face Nigerian politics, because Nigeria has much more for Black Americans than in America. I for example, one of the things. Let me finish real quick, please. One of the things that I have I've been preaching is, why can rich Black Americans go to Nigeria and start like a football league or a soccer league? I did a calculation about a year ago that if there was a successful soccer league, in Nigeria, the Nigerian soccer league every season will be bringing almost 6 trillion naira. So if Black America can face Africa and Nigeria, build over there, then bring it back here like a bridge, and just turn America into a sales point. You sell what you bring from Africa and your wealth and your leverage from Africa, you bring it here and you sell it to other races.
Yeah, but they're still gonna have to deal with politics in
Then you can
Nigeria.
deal with
which is
politics
fine.
because you got money now. You got
See,
leverage.
wait, so you're admitting that money? Wait, you just argued against me. Now
Not
you're
only
admitting that
money,
you
bro,
need money.
because
But
what
it
you're
starts
bringing
with
from
money.
Africa is not only money. It's
It starts with
control.
money, though, bro. You just
But
admitted
It's
it
that's
not
starts
only
with
all.
money.
money.
But
It's
that all is
control. It's
that's
leverage.
still politics. It's still
Imagine, okay,
politics.
imagine Black Americans go and buy a mine. Imagine Black Americans created mine in Africa.
It
Whereby
take money to buy mine. What the fuck you don't understand? My bad, brother Lumumba. It
Yeah.
take like
I understand
am I
the frustration, but we're good. We're good.
You know what I'm saying?
am I the only one that's seeing this here? All I'm saying, brother, is
Yeah,
it begins with money.
but on the level that you're speaking of, it still takes politics. I don't understand why you just
Yeah,
want to ignore
because
that.
I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm saying that economic comes first, then politics.
You guys are saying the same thing, to be honest. It just
Because I'm just saying that economics come first.
I think you wanted to chime in.
You get what I'm saying? Okay, go ahead. Let's put it this way: 1A, 1B, 1A, 1B, but economics is 1A though. It's together.
Jay Lumumba, go right ahead, and then wisdom never sleeps.
Okay.
Thank you. It's interesting to me. The immigration conversation got real interesting to me because the question is in Pan-Africanism. And as far as I understand it as a Pan-Africanist, coming into it from people who cut their teeth in organizations like All African People's Revolutionary Party, Pan-Africanism, at least until now, has always been about the liberation of the African continent, the unification of the African continent, so politically, economically, so on and so forth, so that we can have a strong representation or home base for Africans all over the world, at home and abroad. So when the question is, can a Pan-Africanist, if that's what your goal is as a Pan-Africanist, vote for Republican, not for a Republican, but Republican. The question should always be, is this vote going to be in support of an individual or a party that has a policy that is opposed to the unification of Africa? So the Republican Party, yes, has policies that are opposed to that divide and create war and exacerbate divisions. So do the Democrats,
yes.
For that,
you can argue that's American foreign policy, right? Irrespective of the party.
Yeah, exactly. So now my issue would be, okay, can I vote for an individual? Because obviously a city councilman doesn't have any say on that foreign policy.
Right.
But a city councilman may be good for my economics or for my community locally, politically, whether they happen to be a member of the Republican Party or the Democratic Party or an independent. So then, but the question should always be,
policy.
Does the party policy support or oppose Pan-Africanism? Now, in regard to immigration, the United States, and this is again the Pan-Africanist position, as far as I understood, it has traditionally been on the side of the indigenous populations in the Americas. And a lot of the people who are coming over the United States border are descendants from people who have been disenfranchised and displaced by the United States imperial policy to create what we know as the United States today. So if I'm looking at Africa, for example, if a Yoruba
banana wars would be a good example of that.
Yeah, exactly. So if a brother or sister who's Yoruba is migrating traditionally over an old colonial border in Africa, is that an issue? If traditionally or historically their families have lived on either side of those colonial borders that are currently different countries in Africa, and if that's an issue, should we resolve it by making those borders stiffer so that they can't do that, or should we help them stay in touch with their families by making the border more solvent? So that, because if we're talking about preserving the empire of the United States, which has displaced all these indigenous people who still exist, then what are we really talking about? That's not Pan-Africanism. We're preserving something that white people have created to create land for themselves and to steal resources for themselves. So
to benefit themselves.
My immigration policy would be, let's support the indigenous population and their descendants on this landmass, and being able to come home and claim resources. But you know, and that's not at the expense of our own African people here.
Exactly.
But
See, it's been at the
the
expense.
only way we're going to
Exactly.
be able to
Wait, hold on,
ourselves.
wait. Let him
Because
finish.
we're not looking at things from a group economics point
Wait,
of view.
come on. Let Jay Lumumba finish, and everybody have a chance to provide their rebuttal.
Right. No, we're just interjecting a little bit.
Yeah,
Okay,
I mean,
go ahead.
I'm not saying that should happen at the expense of African communities here, because I see where some of our communities are being overrun. So that's where the local politics comes into play. Hold the mayor accountable in Chicago.
Yes.
You know, Donald Trump is not going to
change the
on
what's going on in Chicago.
Yeah. He's not going to. New York City, for Donald Trump has no power to say. He has no power to say whether Chicago is a sanctuary city or not. That's local politics. So people living in Chicago who have voting rights in Chicago need to handle that.
And that's the problem I have with Black Republicans. They make it seem as if Donald Trump can just solve all of these problems. And it's like some of this stuff is like policies, local politics. It has nothing to do with Donald Trump or Biden. That's the point.
Guys, listen.
I also think. Let me say something real quick. I also think.
Let Wisdom Never Sleep speak.
Sorry.
Wisdom Sleep, go ahead.
This is what I keep hearing. I keep saying this over and over again. To be men, boy, y'all should go left when you should be going right, or right when you should be going left. Either way it goes. Listen, y'all get so hyped about the Trump derangement effect, but you have to remember, collectively, y'all would be in the same argument with Bush, Clinton, Obama, Nixon, anybody else that was Democrat or Republican. You would still be doing the same thing as Black people have done all of these 40, 50, 60 years. Let's just tell the truth about things. You just happen to be in a more social enlightenment, more news media, stuff like that. You don't want to admit that with your vote, even for Democrats, you ask for nothing. At least the people that are trying to vote Republican are trying to look for a policy of something, not so much against whether it's the alphabet or the immigrant. It's for the people. And y'all keep bringing up, well, it's one for the LGBTQ. No, they're not running to Republicans. They're trying to run to policy to help do that. So
what policies are those?
I might be
well, what I'm saying is
here.
economic policies, for one. If you're talking about economics and things like that, if you're talking about trying to preserve the family, if you're trying to talk about not having your daughter, get some guy come in the bathroom with your daughter, have to be on a team to say that because he got on a wig or he identifies with nothing else but an identified word, just to go in there and bust your daughter up on a wrestling team.
You ain't got to speak to me on that.
I know what you would do as a man and a father. So I'm just saying.
You know me, but let me say this. Hold on. Let me say this. When we talk about, when we talk about the family, because that's never even a question. People, my daughter would tell you, like, listen, he gonna go cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. Trust me, he gonna go to Baghdad.
Right.
But I will say this about the family. In the 80s, the Oval Office was ran by a Republican administration, Reagan, Bush, and the House and the Senate were controlled by Republicans. And during that time, they are the ones who pushed the no-fault divorce. So,
well, like I said, we're talking about U.S. There's a difference between U.S., a total U.S. system that's created. It's just like with the immigration situation. The basic immigration has a quota of certain people, and it's never been open. Just like the open borders now, they will still go get too many Haitians and send them back, Africans. They're not going to let them be as open as the people that they want to be here. So let's be real about what it is. So y'all are talking about things that still affect the collective body of people. I don't have to live in Chicago and Detroit and places to see their pain because they was too scared to vote for somebody that can that don't want what they want the same things they want.
Let me say this. One Titan says, but as a father, you voted for it. Actually, I didn't. You were making the assumption or presumption that I voted Democrat, which I haven't.
No.
I'm talking about the person in the comment, which is the last time I voted Democrat was the 2000. Well, I voted Democrat in the presidential election one time, and that was for Obama in 2008.
I've been in this country for over 15 years. I've never voted once.
16 years ago. 16 years ago. So
I've never voted once in this
something
country.
to consider.
Yeah, can I say?
But
Can I
what
say
I'm saying,
something?
if
Can I
you
say
it's just
something?
like for
You've been
those that
talking
you
for
are
a while,
truly in the
man. Come
wait a
on.
minute, Najaja. Hold on, no, you talk for 400 minutes and you talk 400
Oh
minutes.
my
I'm
God.
not gonna let
Big 400 minutes. You
I'm
guys,
not
you
gonna
guys,
let you get
you
away
guys
with
are
that.
so
I'm not let
edifying behavior.
no,
You know,
no,
you guys
no,
are
no. I'm not
edifying.
let no.
Because you
I'm
don't
not
like
let
what I'm
no.
saying.
Go ahead.
I will call you out. So don't
You know,
try
too,
that with me.
Nigeria wants to
I am.
talk
Unedifying
about
behavior.
some other
I am one of those.
pan-Arabism. He wants to talk
I
about
am
other
one
people.
that will let you stop
Unedifying
that.
We don't
behavior.
want to do Pan-Arabism.
Stop it. Stop it. When you want to talk 45 minutes, you'll cut somebody else at 4. So stop that. Be a man now today.
Wow.
So what I'm saying is this. We have to stop with the party and the personality. What can we do to benefit our people versus our feelings? Some of us gonna be hurt by what we do, the way we feel. But in the long run of the vision, we got to set a foundation for us as a collective body. So if somebody tell you they're only gonna give you a holiday or a celebration or vote boot to the polls or whatever, they're telling you how they really think about you as a people, regardless. And if you can't accept that, now somebody said, at least talk, we got overall U.S. policy for certain things, you understand that. But you are working, living, and operating in this corporate structured matrix. And if you don't want to benefit from it no more than just see what happens to you, that's what's going to happen to us, plain and simple.
So Shabaka says neither the Republicans or Democrats will ever give African people in America any real power. Pan-Africanism is
Hell yeah.
Facts.
Hell yeah.
And we won't, and we don't try to take it either.
So we're gonna get ready to close out. So I'm gonna
whoa. Wisdom Steve made a great point, and I'm gonna let it go. He said that we don't try to take it either.
That's the point right there.
Wait, take what? What? Say that again.
Take power.
We waiting for them to give it, but we won't take it because power and freedom is only taken; it's never given to by
but
the
in a corporatocracy, the power that you can have is economical power. In order for you to snatch whatever you want to take, you have to have economical power first.
And you need Pan-Africanism to do so.
Oh, okay. It's got to be behind force. It's got to be behind your economical power. Your economical enrichment is behind Pan-Africanism. It's Pan-Africanism.
But you can't have a economical power is a collective power. It is not an individual.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
And so, but listen to me. You say that, but then you might say, "Well, I can't vote for that side because it's not politics. It's
we're not
economics.
voting as Pan-Africanism, sir. We are not voting as Pan-Africanism.
Well, I mean, you can vote as a Pan-Africanist.
Yeah, you can
and
vote
I think
for
you
policy.
should engage politically. I don't think you should.
Even
based on policy. If you want, if you do,
and I wouldn't advocate that because that's taxation without representation.
Well, hold on, Lumumba, hold on. If you do want to engage that way, like you said, you vote based on policies.
Yeah.
Okay, right. I agree with that. But you're not just voting just to vote. You're not just voting based on emotionalism.
Right.
But as a Pan-Africanist, as a Nigerian, and as a Pan-Africanist, I think that the best thing we need to do is to create a buffer economy. We Black Americans and Africans, wherever we suggest is going to be, we need to create an economy that goes without white folk or anybody else. A situation whereby if white folks or anybody does anything, we still have our own basis whereby we can make our own money and employ our own people. And I think that that's the most important thing right now.
You can't do that when a lot of them still want to marry the white folks and the Chinese.
That is why you don't
do. That's where your wealth is going.
But that's one of the biggest mistakes.
Hold on real quick. Let me ask this question to Niger. The question is by Econ Fire. Have you ever read the philosophies and opinions of Marcus Garvey?
Lie.
Hold
on. Have you ever read the
African? Unlike some people that like to act as if they are more African than Africans, it's ridiculous. Some of the
I need to answer the question. Have you ever read the philosophies and opinions of Marcus Garvey?
No, I don't. I have not. I just said it. Even when I came on the show, I said I don't know this history.
Okay.
I speak for our people today. I don't talk about other people telling us what to think.
Then you should keep quiet. You should start talking about things you don't know anything about.
You've all had your say. Can I have my say? I've been very quiet.
Not if you're going to be talking about Arabism and Pan-Africanism.
Let me have my own say.
Hold on. Hey, Tunisia is actually a good brother, y'all. He's just a little quick. Like I've seen Tunisia in other panels, and he actually makes great points in many different panels. But the problem is, I
host a show of 70,000 people. So watch the way you behave, because I'm going to share some of all this stuff. Some of the stuff I've heard here today is outrageous, really. But carry on.
See, and the reason why Tunisia feel like that, because by the way, I'm West African also. Okay, so in Africa, sometimes we kind of like confuse Pan-Africanism sometimes. And I'll be honest. Okay, the reason why Arabs cannot be a part of Pan-Africanism, Europeans, and all of these groups, Tunisia, is because look at the history between us and these groups. It has never worked.
Exactly.
It's always been bad. First of all, the
You know
Arabs were the
how
first ones to
outrageous
enslave us.
people in I have to defend.
Go ahead, B. Quillan.
Okay, so I get the point that Tunisia is making too. So in North Africa, it's not all Arabs. We're not saying that. We also know there's Black Africans in North Africa. The problem with North Africa, the people that are in power, the people that have the authority, are the Arabs. They control the politics in North Africa. So we're not saying that. We're not saying that just forget every African that's in North Africa. That's not what we're saying. But we're saying that we cannot include or involve Arabs or European in Pan-Africanism, because you know why? The Arabs do not include us in their Pan-Arabism. They don't include us in it.
They don't include us in their affairs.
Pan-Africanism is for economic, political, cultural power for African people globally. That's the foundations of Pan-Africanism.
Am I
Because
allowed
we're the
to
ones
talk?
that's facing anti-blackness. The Middle East is engraved with anti-blackness. Tunisia, I was a Muslim. I was born Muslim. I'm Timni. I'm from Sierra Leone. Trust me, Arabs do not like black people. Their culture is engraved with anti-blackness.
The
Of course
world
they
is
don't.
engraved with
Am I allowed
anti-blackness.
to talk?
Go ahead.
I understand the threat Arabs face. We have a Pan-Arabism war going on in Sudan right now. So nobody needs to tell me that. Some of the earliest Pan-Africanists on that continent were Algerians. They trained ANC and
That's
they
not true.
trained this thing. Hold on the continent. They went on to train this thing Mandela too. Ben Bella of Algeria is not your Niger Congo group. If you turn Pan-Africanism to Pan-Niger Congo group, which East Africans are complaining about, you are running a risk of fracturing the continent. I sat on debates, many debates, where Africans are saying African Americans are not Africans. They have admixture. They are this, they are that, they are all the rest. And African Americans are sitting here telling Africans that they are not Pan-Africanists. That
Mr.
is
Man, you are not making
Okay,
sense.
Tunisia,
Mr. Man, you are not making
Hold
sense.
on,
Go
let me
and sit
finish
down.
your
You are not
what
making
you say.
sense.
Hold
We
on.
don't care about what other group
Wait,
do or what they want to
hold
do.
on. Wait, one mic. So I'm gonna let you, Brother B, I'm gonna let you respond. I don't want to butcher your name, and then B. Quillan can respond.
I'm not even finished, but it's okay.
Because, well, one, being a Pan-Africanist is based on accepting, choosing to live your life by a particular set of values and beliefs.
By your definition.
No, not by
No,
mine.
by
That is
the
the
definition has been
definition.
set
Not
back.
on
I
the
told you
continent.
before,
We have the
I did
Pan-Africanist
not create
Parliament.
Pan-Africanism. But like I said, you say that you have not read up on the ideology.
Exactly.
So I'm telling you that these are the
You
core
are following
tenets of the
Macaulay-Based
ideology,
one.
and
There
you
are
don't
others
believe
on
me.
the
Mr.
continent.
Man,
There's
we do
different
not
type
care
of
about other
Pan-Africanism.
groups. We don't care about what other groups
We
do.
don't.
We are
There are different
Africans.
types
We
of
move as
Pan-Africanism.
Africans. We want to do African things. Let the Arabs do what they do.
You are
Ben
really being
Bella is
childish,
the
Lumumba.
exception.
You need to
Ben
grow up.
Bella is the exception. And look at even Gaddafi. Look at Gaddafi. Gaddafi was a Pan-African. After he died, his closet came out. The closet that he was burying came out. What are they doing to black Africans now in Libya?
They're
Mauritania.
selling black people in
You
open
get what I'm
air
saying?
slave markets.
Mauritania.
Most you Africans say that Gaddafi was a Pan-African because of the things he did, right? But his closet is now opened. Look at what his children are doing to black Africans.
Yeah, well.
See, because somebody, I can give you $2 to take $100 from you. I can give you something of worth to take something more worth from you. You are not an African. Through Nigeria, you are not an African. You will never be a Pan-African. You are a multiculturalist.
All right, hold on. But be quiet. I'm gonna let you tap in, and then
I have a quick question
you
for
just jumped
Tunisia.
in the chat, so I'll let you speak as well.
All right. So, Tunisia, I have a quick question for you. So, can the white South Africans in South Africa be part of Pan-Africanism?
He just left. He left.
Somebody's turned their
background information off.
Yeah, go ahead.
But a king within.
My bad. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. Timbo Slice asked me, have I read any of Fanon's books? Yes, I have. In fact, I was going to try to show off because I have all of them. In fact, I have all of Fans Fanon's books. But every time I need to grab the book to show off, I can't find them. But yes, go right ahead.
Okay, I'd like to make a quick point about Tunisia because I think we kind of misunderstand him. The reason why he's speaking the way he's speaking a lot. Okay, so first of all, not every single African in the continent is Pan-Africanism. The same way, not every single black person in America is a Pan-African. So I don't even know what
Exactly.
Elijah is talking about. He's trying to discredit African Americans for saying who. I don't even know what the point he was making. Like,
No point.
I don't even get that point.
No point. It's just what to look at. I am Nigerian. I come from Nigeria. I know my people. There are some of our people who fetishizes white skin.
Facts.
Right. So here I have all of Fans Fanon's books, all of them.
Mm-hmm.
So you know, I like to flex every now and then because I'm in the LL, the Lumumba Library. But
what you are seeing in True Nigeria is an example of self-hatred.
Brother Day, and very quickly, Brother Day, you're in queue. I need you to cam up in queue so I can see who you are. Make sure you're not a troll, and then I will let you into the live feed. And then, Brother A King Within, one, you've been waiting patiently, so please go right ahead.
All right, what's going on, everybody?
Doing quite all right. How are you?
All right. So, first, I wanted to get to what he was talking about, politics and economics, right? And Dynast was correct. It's all politics. Whether it's economics, even if you start with money, you know what I'm saying, you still have to do the politics in order to get the money to work for you. Now, when it comes to voting, if it doesn't matter where you at. Okay, say we in America. I'm in America. I'm American, and you may be a Nigerian or a Ghanaian or whatever. But if you say we don't need to vote, the black people can just do what they want to do and make them. You can't do that because from America's standpoint, you have to have shipment. You got to ship stuff from one side to the other, right? And you can't do that without voting. You can't do that without politics. You got to put people in there that's going to be able to sanction you to be able to move like you want to move. Oh, that comes from voting. That don't just you just don't get that in the fishbowl. It all comes with voting.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Let me interject a little bit, right?
Politics
is just like saying loyalty.
Well,
right?
No. Politics is what happens when a collective. Wait a minute, hold on. When a collective of people band together for their good, that's politics. Whether you in the neighborhood, whether it's just in your community, right?
Okay.
whether
I see what you're saying. You know
right. That's all politics.
I see what you're saying now. Okay,
let him finish. Let him finish.
Yeah, all that's politics. So there's always aspects to politics, whether you talk about war or money, it all could come together, right? Everything you do is politics.
Corrected.
Yeah.
Corrected. You're right. You guys are right. Dynast, I see what you're saying. You're right. I stand corrected.
Now, as far as let's see, we were talking about the collective of black people abroad, the diaspora, being Pan-Africanist or whatever the case may be. The truth is that most of us are not Pan-Africanists. Okay,
that's true.
A lot of us don't even know. How old was I? I might have been.
Pan-Africanism is.
I might have been almost 30 years old before I actually met an African, right? So, or now, so it is not. Even though I'm well schooled in Pan-Africanism and culturalism and stuff like that, but there's a lot of people, even the people that I grew up with, you know what I'm saying, they wasn't into that. They didn't know nothing about it. They didn't want to hear nothing about it. So we always gonna have people where that's not going to want to be part of the collective because they're about getting theirs, and it does hurt us in the long run. But if as I can see now, 20 years ago, you didn't see talk like this coming from a lot of people. They're only in small pieces, you know what I'm saying? In small rooms, you would hear this kind of talk. Back in the '60s, it was different. Now it was more, it was bigger in the '60s and '70s. But in between that time and now, it wasn't a whole bunch of Pan-Africanism and none of that. You know what I'm saying? Being talked about. So you bringing people that haven't really heard nothing about this type of stuff, trying to bring them into it. So one of the reasons I listen to this channel is a pretty good channel. But go ahead.
I was gonna say respectfully, I feel like when it pertains to Pan-Africanism and everything, and like what the title is and everything, I think if you I think you can't be a Pan-Africanist and not vote Republican and not be on that side, because if you supporting illegal immigration, if you supporting all that, then you're not really pro-black. And also I think that just my definition of Pan-Africanist, I support Africans and all that, but they're not my main focus. My main focus is Black Americans in America. And y'all and other people
But there's
outside.
no definition of your own Pan-Africanism.
There is a definition. We are
No,
on it.
you can define what Pan-Africanism is. The people who started Pan-Africanism already defined it for what it is. So either you get on board or get out.
Let me say my point first. Then you can disagree.
One mic. Brother Day, we're gonna let you finish, and then we will have a retort. Please finish.
My point is that I agree with, like, we should like be one family and stuff, right? But at the same time, I feel that just as though there are many tribes in Africa, Black Americans, we have had some.
Hold on, brother. We use the term ethnic group, not tribe, because tribe denotes something that is primitive. So we use the term ethnic group here at Lumumba Speaks.
Okay, well, I feel that we have created something called ethnogenesis. We have created our own ethnic group in America. So we have delineated from them and stuff. So when it comes to like issues of racism and stuff, we will merge together. But when it comes to anything outside of that, I feel that we should work separately, but together at the same time with the same common goal. But I feel like our goal should be for the to dismantle racism globally, white supremacy. But I'm not gonna act like we have anything in common, because we don't.
Well, so I will say, hold on. So there are a couple of things we can unpack from that. But one, I would argue we do have a lot in common. Behind me here in the Lumumba Library, but there are a number of forms of African cultural retention that we find in African American culture. So we do have a lot in common. And I think I'm going to do a show on that, on African cultural retention, African American culture. Secondly, Pan-Africanism, and I gave an example at the top of the broadcast regarding the difference between Black nationalism and Pan-Africanism, and I'm going to bring it up one more time so that you all can see this, and then that way we can just clear up what the definition is, right? Because I think that's part of the issue as well, in terms of people not knowing or understanding what exactly Pan-Africanism means.
You could be a Black nationalist and still be a Pan-Africanist.
This is well, that's what I'm going to unpack, right? So we talk about. So let me bring this up here. Give me 1 second, family. I get in here and I bring this up. I need to share screen window. Here we go. All right. So Black nationalism advocates for the social, political, and economic empowerment of Black people in one's particular country, right? Pan-Africanism advocates for the social, political, and economic empowerment of Black people globally.
Yeah, around the world.
Yeah. So that is the difference. One focuses on simply in one's country. The other focuses on it globally, right? I made the argument at the beginning of the broadcast that part of Pan-Africanism, and it's very simple, that what one can do is, in any way that you can, when you're wherever you are, if you can, you work with and help other Black people.
Yeah.
Point blank, period. Right. Yeah. So it doesn't matter if you're in Madagascar, if you're in Florida, you're in Alaska, or you're in the UK. If you can, you work with and seek to empower Black people. Very, very simple.
Yeah.
Does Lumumba think that Pan-Africanism is the end goal of Pan-Africanism is the freedom of individuals to act in the manner how they want without
I'm sorry,
infringing?
I didn't follow that.
Do you see the goal of Pan-Africanism as increased human flourishing, increased standard of living, and greater levels of individual freedom? How would Fanon's Marxism and Sekou Touré's socialism bring about that kind of human flourishing?
Well, so, for me, no, Pan-Africanism focuses on Black people flourishing, not human flourishing. So you're looking at, and I understand that there is a stream of thought in Pan-Africanism in terms of Pan-African socialism, where the concept and idea is that the issues are class-based rather than racially based, right? But I'm a revolutionary Pan-African nationalist, so I don't think along those lines. And so,
define what you mean by flourishing, Black flourishing. Black flourishing. Do you mean increase standard of living. I mean, I'm assuming you don't want black people to be poor.
Right.
You want them to be rich, right? So how would the
let me answer
politics
the
of
question.
Sekou Touré and
Let me answer the
Marxism of
question.
Fanon achieve that?
Well, when I say black empowerment and black flourishing, yes, we want our people to have a higher standard of living. Also, for me, and I hope some of the other Pan-Africanists can speak to this, even some of the black, now it doesn't matter, anyone can speak to this on the panel. I also make the argument that part of that is us being able to live independent of foreign domination, political, economics, and socially.
Right.
So
yeah, but you're not
let
answering
me
the
interject.
question. I'm talking about, all right, for instance, you talk about a black nation, all right? Measurement of standard of living is what? GDP per capita, etc. How would you
That's
propose to raise the GDP of nations in Africa, or GDP of black Americans and GDP per capita, the productivity levels of black
Americans
people?
already have that,
How
man.
would
we
you
are not thinking in those terms.
what policies would you offer based on your readings of the Marxist Fanon and the socialist Kwame Ture, especially given the fact that we know we have tons of evidence that socialism does not produce these kinds of results?
Right, I'm not a socialist, so
That's false. Yeah,
hold
that's
on.
not
So
true.
if I could,
Yeah,
I'm not
also
a
not true.
socialist, so I wouldn't
Socialism did
propose
not work for the
anything because
Europeans.
I'm not a socialist.
Socialism did not work for the Europeans. It does not mean that
That's
it's going
something
to
that
work. It's not going to work for
It
other
doesn't
people.
work for anybody.
No, we
It didn't
practice.
work for the
that's something
Chinese.
that
It didn't work for the Europeans. It didn't work for the
you mean it didn't
Africans.
work for Chinese.
So
China is
It didn't
very
work for
I don't
quickly,
support
Chinese.
hold on,
socialism. Don't get me wrong. I don't support
one mic,
They
socialism.
had to adopt capitalism.
hold on, one mic. I've never advocated for socialism, so I don't know why you asked me
Me
that
neither.
question.
Me
Yeah, because
neither.
you talk about Fanon and Kwame Ture.
Right, but there's more
But
than
you said you read those
socialism.
guys.
They are,
Don't you say you read
There are
them?
aspects of society where socialism, as you call it, must exist. There are aspects of society
You
like free
guys sound
education.
too
Like
vague.
Let's
free
talk about.
education
No,
is a
You
must.
guys
hold
sound
You get
on.
what
too
I'm saying?
vague.
Hold
Affordable
on.
housing is
Explain.
a
Let's talk
must.
about.
There's an
one
aspect
mic,
of socialism that,
mic.
okay, yes.
Let's talk
Okay,
about.
yes.
Let's talk about socialism, right?
Go ahead.
Socialism. No matter where you go, you have it in every country.
Thank you.
There's no country in the world that's
Free
just
lunch,
all.
for example, in
Oh,
America
hold
is
on, hold on.
socialism.
Who that?
Hold on. More here. Go on through.
There's no country in the world that's all capitalism. I mean, even here in America, there's socialism. Anytime when you get any kind of thing, anything from the government, that's socialism. Somebody got to pay for it. Somebody got to pay taxes for it. If you paying taxes to your government, you part of socialism.
Exactly.
If there's not a place in this world that you can
But that's
go that
not
you ain't
answering the
paying tax,
question.
that you're not paying taxes to the government.
Kofi,
But
go
that's
on
not
mute.
answer.
Well, my answer is you were saying that socialism didn't work, but socialism does work.
No, you have different levels. All countries are mixed economies, but you have
Right.
different levels of
Exactly. That's
So
socialism.
how would you
Right.
exactly.
how
For
could you say
instance,
that socialism doesn't work?
because
Nobody really went for
in Cuba, in North Korea, and
Watch
in
this.
African countries that tried
Cuba was being
socialism.
sabotaged.
Now that you're
Cuba
talking
was being
about
Hold on,
sabotaged.
I
Cuba,
don't finish.
let's talk about it from
I don't finish.
Let a king within one speak.
Let's talk about it from what you're saying, from the aspect you're speaking. Okay, you saying that it didn't work in Cuba. It wasn't that socialism didn't work in Cuba. It's that America and all of the Europeans decided to put all them sanctions on Cuba because they took over down there in Cuba.
Yeah,
So that's right. And if you look anywhere that there's socialist countries, they did that even throughout Central and South America. It was the same. Look what they're doing in Venezuela right now.
Exactly.
Venezuela was one of the richest countries in South America. And then
it was rich under before Chavez.
And look at it.
Chavez, the one that started the socialism down there.
Okay. So it what?
Are you telling me, I'm not going to lie, you wouldn't want free education for your children?
You said you would?
Because there's no such thing.
A question. Are you telling me that you don't want free education and free healthcare for your children?
It's not free. It's not free. You have to pay for it. Even if you pay taxes, you pay for it. So it's not free.
I'm trying to say. You get what I'm saying? Affordable. Let's affordable.
Yeah.
Affordable education and affordable Medicare. Wouldn't you want that for yourself and your children?
Yeah.
That's not socialism.
That's socialism. It's all
That's a necessity of life.
Healthcare,
Republican talk
all of
about
that is
So
socialism.
you said that the white government in America is racist against black people, but you want the government to monopolize something as important as healthcare.
Look, why is it that you have a problem with socialism and communism?
No, I'm trying to understand. If you think the white government in America is evil, why would you want them to monopolize something as important as healthcare? That don't make no sense.
Monopolize healthcare? I don't understand. That does not make sense.
That's universal healthcare, government control healthcare. Why would you think government monopoly of healthcare?
It doesn't necessarily have to be controlled by the government, like Lumumba was saying.
What are you talking about? That's what socialism is.
This guy's going to put the responsibility on the local government.
Wait, when you say socialism, this is mean is regulated.
One mic. This is what we're going to do. 10 Dodgy, he's about to step out. So he wants to make a final statement, and then we're going to get to Jay Lumumba. And then we're going to do a round robin, final thoughts, and we will close out. Go right ahead, 10 Dodgy.
All right, peace, family. Yeah, I'm not going to address the socialism point. I'm a Pan-African nationalist. We on the do for self side, so y'all don't argue about that. Y'all do over there. We already know every country is a mixed economy. I don't even know why that's an argument. But I'm going to say that, I'm going to just speak to the chat and say, there was a brother about 15 minutes ago. He had the bald head. He spoke about Pan-Africanism and basically tying it to the continent. And therefore, anybody who vote for who was not for or against, their position on the continent is what matters. He gave that as the reason to why you shouldn't vote Republican, I believe.
Well, he said Republican and Democrat.
Okay, let's say that.
Because American foreign policy is rooted in destabilizing African nations and disrupting African communities.
Yeah, it don't matter which side you're on.
Globally.
It don't matter which side you're on.
These are historical
We shouldn't focus on that. We should focus on America, though. If we Pan-African, we should focus on America.
This is the problem with that.
We worried about reparations. We're not worried about that other shit.
We understand
I'm
that.
trying to get reparations.
I want reparations.
One mic.
I'm for reparations, right? But this is the problem. Wait a minute. This is the problem that you come into. If you say that you don't want to be involved with what's going on in Africa or around the world to black people, do you understand that if you're here right here in America, they're not going to treat you no different than they treat anybody else around the world? Wait a minute.
Can you hear me right now, Lumumba?
They're not, huh?
Can y'all hear me right now?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Because I was still talking. Hold up right quick.
All right, go right ahead.
My point is, I don't know if I went out or what, but my point is the brother analysis was a little bit off. It's because when he said Pan-Africanism, he referenced the continent and the people on the continent. What he left off was, and its people globally. Because when you add that part on, now you have to understand it, which I don't think some of y'all have, which is that if I want to protect myself and want to have a firearm, that becomes a Pan-African issue because I'm an African. I'm of the African diaspora in America. So me voting Republican is tied to that issue. Or if I if I want black babies to be born and not aborted, that's a Pan-African issue because I'm of that race, of that diaspora. I think some of y'all lock y'all minds on the continent and you view it as it's not just about how this senators or whatever position on military conflict or whatever in Africa is the sole deciding factor. Because that's the point, you're gonna be voting for nobody, and if that's your position, say that. But I think that's not smart. So
I'm going to provide a retort. Appreciate you getting that in. So one, when we talk about firearms, I actually am a legal gun owner. I have a large cache of firearms. I legally own them. Seriously, anybody who knows me, I take my daughter to the range with me.
Yes, sir.
Right, we clap back. But here's the issue. People talk about the Republican Party and firearms and for black people. In California, when the Black Panthers were doing their thing, right?
Reagan.
Getting it out the mud. It was the Republican Party, particularly Governor Reagan.
Reagan.
To take away gun weapons from black people, and they created what was known as the Panther Bill. So there's a history of the Republican Party being anti-black people owning firearms. Wait. So this is just something that's historically accurate. The other issue, Brother Dave, you said that your focus primarily here in America. Fine, no problem. But that would, by definition, would be black nationalism, not Pan-Africanism.
Right.
The
That's all
thing
it
is,
takes.
when you focus, but I hear you, and you're right about Republicans being racist and stuff. You're absolutely right. The
They
problem
are
is that
racist.
when
I
you
mean, both of
dissect.
them are racist.
Yeah, both of
Yeah,
them
yeah,
racist.
you're right. But the problem is when you remove yourself from that, and then you look at other things, right? You say, oh well, they're not. You say they're doing things specifically hindering the black community, which is true.
Mm-hmm.
The thing is, when you don't vote for them, now you're voting for liberals and stuff who are directly trying to
So,
replace the black vote by
so
bringing
here's
in all these migrants. Our numbers are
hold
going to be
on.
6%
But
of
I
the
don't
population.
Wait,
That's
hold on,
true.
hold on. So here's the thing. I never stated removing yourself from anything. I don't advocate divorcing oneself from politics. I don't
Right.
advocate voting for liberals.
Yeah.
Right?
That's right.
Malcolm X talked about white liberals. So did Asasi Shakur, Kwame Ture in their
Mm-hmm.
writings. Right? So I'm not advocating for that. What I'm stating is you have to look at each candidate's policies,
Yeah.
local, state, and federal. Any person
Right,
who's politically
right,
mature should do that,
Yeah.
right.
irrespective of the race, gender, sexual orientation,
And what's the track
religious
record of
belief,
socialist policies?
period. Right?
What's
That's
the
what I'm
track record
advocating.
of
I'm
socialist
advocating,
policies?
Kofi, let me speak. I'm advocating being politically mature, meaning you
Mm-hmm.
don't vote blindly for anyone. You look at
Mm-hmm.
their policies. That's what I'm advocating. I've advocated that since I was 18 years old. And
Yeah.
that was 22 years ago.
Yeah.
So people try to conflate that when I'm critical of both parties because they both
Facts.
are white supremacists in nature, and there is a long history to substantiate that claim.
Facts.
Yeah.
But you see,
I
if they're white
associate
supremacists,
Kofi,
why
wait.
would
They
you
got people
want
making
the
a room.
government to monopolize health care?
Right.
That's
So
what I
we're not
don't
talking about
understand.
that.
What
Jay
you
Lumumba, I'm going to let you
Y'all
finish
know what
your
Kofi talking about.
when you
Thank
talk about
you.
hold on.
Brother Tandaji quoted me, but he was misquoted me in regard to what I said about Pan-Africanism and the continent. I focused on the end goal being the unification of Africa, the continent, and I said that was for the benefit of African people at home and abroad. So that doesn't
That's right.
exclude any of us who happen to be in the diaspora or not. So everything he was saying, I support what he was saying at the end of it as far as the local politics. I thought I stressed that in regard to how we should handle it if we don't live on the continent. So no disagreement with him there. I just wanted to get my quote back in proper order. As far as the socialist thing, I think you use Cuba as an example,
Mm-hmm.
and you talked about other places. So let's just say Cuba and Venezuela, for example, because they were mentioned. Cuba was doing well until the special period in 1991
Very well.
under socialism. Very well. Why did things change in 1991? Because resource-based supporter, the USSR, collapsed.
Mm-hmm.
So now they had to figure out how to maintain without their biggest partner politically in the global state and of things. Venezuela was doing very well until sanctions and the death of Chavez.
That's right.
Why? Because they had control
That's
of
not
certain
true.
resources in Venezuela.
That's not true.
It is. It is true.
It is.
The sanction, the
Hold on,
economic
let him
downturn
finish.
came
Let him
before the
finish.
sanctions.
Go
No.
ahead.
Kofi's not well read.
Nah, they just now
I
started
said
doing sanctions in the last 5 years.
So they were doing very well under socialism in Venezuela
That's
until
right.
a point. And so this is my point. They were doing well under socialism. Cuba was doing well under socialism. Certain conditions changed.
Yeah.
Haiti, for example, is not a socialist state; it's a capitalist state.
Yeah.
It's doing terrible. So capitalism by default doesn't make a state successful economically.
But it's the same
Neither does
thing
socialism.
with Haiti being
It has to be
doing bad like it is, and that's been because they've been under sanctions all those years since they kicked all that ass in 1804, and then
Any system can work.
right. But
Any
and they've been
system can
they've
work
been
if
under
the people
sanctions the
want it to
whole
work.
time. So
Oh, so you say you're making excuse for
point is that
Venezuela, but not for
a
Haiti.
socialist.
no, it's the same thing.
No, I'm talking Lumumba.
Oh,
He's making excuses for Venezuela, but not for Haiti. If you're gonna blame
But Haiti is
sanctions for
not a
everything,
socialist
then it's the
country.
same thing for Haiti.
Haiti is not a socialist country. Haiti is a capitalist country.
Hey, let
No, it is not.
Lumumba, man, let Mr. Lumumba finish, please. Go ahead, Lumumba.
Thank you. So
Go
I'm
ahead.
not making excuses. I'm just using examples. I'm saying now that capitalism does not by default make a nation economically successful, neither does socialism.
right.
So you have humans who are running the economy. They either know what they're doing or they don't.
Yeah.
And then you have other conditions globally that affect economies. You have plenty of capitalist states that have failed. You have
Yeah.
socialist states that have failed.
Is
You have
America
success
failing?
under socialism. You have success.
Wait, please let him finish.
That can be argued. But here's the thing. When we talk about Africa and socialism, and the examples I use are talking about resources. Where do most of the resources in the world come from to support capitalist states in the modern era? Africa. So when we talk about Pan-Africanism and socialism working in Africa, we're talking about the unification of Africa and an infrastructure that allows for African states to be able to negotiate and manage their resources on their own terms. We're not there yet. Some places are better than others in regard. But
can I respond now?
It can work if we have control of the resources in Africa, just as it has worked in other places where there was control and good management of the resources. It can also fail. But we got to be the ones to be involved in that politic and hold the government as influencers or actors in the government accountable to that. So that's just my response to that. It's not a default failure.
Can I respond now?
It doesn't work anywhere.
Yeah. All right. So before Castro came to power, Cuba already had a good healthcare system, better than lots of Latin American countries at the time, and better than some of the
best in the
even the European countries at the time. This was before Castro, so it's not Castro that make the healthcare system in Cuba great. They already had an excellent healthcare system before Castro. That's one. Two, when you talk about resources, the Soviet Union, in terms of resources, was very much endowed with natural resources, yet socialism was a complete and utter failure there. So, right? And in terms of Venezuela, number three. Venezuela, yes, was one of the wealthiest countries in Latin America until Chavez came about and brought the whole socialist thing and used the oil money when oil prices were high, used the oil money and did a lot of improvements. But as with everything else with socialism, sooner or later, government runs out of money. So when the oil prices dip, that's when the socialism started to implode before the sanctions came. All right.
Should I push back on the old thing?
Number four. Yes. All countries are mixed, means socialist and capitalist policies. But some countries are more capitalistic. If you look on the list of economically free countries, in other words, the more capitalist countries, those countries have higher GDP per capita, and higher median income. All right, so government socialism as the hold on. So finish. Landing.
No. Why?
So finish.
It's futile. He's giving an ahistorical perspective, and he's from Zimbabwe. He should know all about sanctions. This is what I'm talking about.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm from Jamaica. Quiet. Hold on. So finish. If you look on the economic freedom index, those countries that are more capitalistic are more prosperous. A socialist professor, what's his name, Richard Wolff, defines socialism as when government does stuff. Okay, and we know in America, Black people have universal access, or supposedly have universal access to security, yet they have crime-ridden neighborhoods. They're supposed to have universal access to education, free education, yet still the school's not working. So I don't know why people think that if you have universal access to healthcare in America, that suddenly healthcare would be top quality healthcare for Black people, when schools are in top quality, when security are in top quality. Even the welfare state, even how that's administered is not top quality. Lots of corruption in there.
Why is it not?
Because of government corruption, bureaucracy. Because of bureaucracy. Bureaucracies are always going to be prone to corruption, prone to inefficiency, and prone to waste.
It's only corruption. It's only corruption if that's you're going against the policy that you set.
What?
They're going against the policy. They're going with the policies that they set. That's not corruption. That's meant to be like that.
Oh, well, okay, fine. Well, that means universal healthcare is even worse, because if you put monopoly powers in the hands of a government to administer healthcare, and you think the syphilis experiment was bad, Wait till you give
That's not.
government even more monopoly in America over healthcare. Socialism is about giving the government power over individuals, and that always going to end badly because
The government
governments have
would
their
only
own.
regulate. Okay, universal health care is about the government regulating how much the doctors can charge somebody for doing
Yeah, that's
whatever it is.
socialism. Much
No,
more than
well,
that.
I'm saying
It's
you saying
irrelevant
About
if you give them
conversation.
is
I
about
mean that's
what
not what you're
medicine
saying
you
though.
take. No. Universal health care is about government monopoly over your health, your life.
No,
Oh,
no,
really? Okay, all right,
no, that's
all
not
right.
what it's about.
Have you heard about the
It's about you
scandal
being able
in
to.
the
It's
UK?
about you being able to get a
Have you
twofold
heard
without
about the
paying
scandal in the
$20 million.
UK? Have you heard about the scandal in the UK when some nurse lady was busy killing all the patients over there,
They
and they
Hey,
do
had
that
another
everywhere.
one mic,
and
little
they
That
had
Mumba,
happens
another.
everywhere.
I gotta close out soon, brother. Little
Okay,
Mumba.
sorry.
That's an individual.
Yeah,
Well,
little
let me
Mumba
say
out
my
there.
But that's universal
Can I
healthcare.
make a quick
I'm
point,
saying
before
that's an
if I may, Amir?
individual.
Can I make a
In
quick point because
universal
I got this?
healthcare,
No, that happens everywhere.
the government was taking up, was covering for her for all these years, and you have lots more scandals in the UK, which has universal
This is
healthcare.
irrelevant. The brother's not well read. But I want to address like some of the comments too. Now he's making in the comments because it's very disrespectful, and this is coming from a West African also. He's making it seem as if Africans in America cannot speak on Africa because they never been to the continent. Okay, coming from a West African, most Africans on the continent know nothing about African history. It's not taught
Exactly.
in our
I
schools.
know everything I know about Africa because of Black
Me
Americans.
too. Me too. Because I had to come to
Let me
America to
finish.
actually learn about our history. So the points Tunais is making is really irrelevant. Most Africans are Arabized and Europeanized. For example, my tribe, I'm Timni. We're from Sierra
So
Leone. We're
ethnic group,
Arabized.
brother, ethnic group. Ethnic group here,
Oh,
Lumumba
ethnic
speaks.
groups.
Ethnic
Oh, yeah,
group.
my fault. Yeah, you're right. Ethnic groups. So Tunais is making a whole bunch of ignorant, asinine points because he's not well read. So
He's not.
I don't want any African American to see like what he's putting in the comment and actually take any like offense to it. He's just
Big
ignorant.
one, big one. You
Mhm.
know, back in those days, you know those people that sold our ancestors out to the
Yep.
Europeans, who were the soldiers and the police, who were policing us in our own community. It's
Mm-hmm.
true Niger. True Niger would have been those people.
It's that mindset. They have that same mindset because they adopt these mindsets and they so welcoming to outsiders, which is like part of the reason why Africa failed. We was disunited and we was welcoming and
Exactly.
we accepted these
It is people
religions.
like True Niger that we have in position of power. That's the
Facts.
reason why we are where we are. And that's the reason why Pan-Africanism is so important.
Mm-hmm.
Because if we can get this thing right, and that is why I'm saying Black America needs to focus on amalgamating with Africa so that they can bring all that knowledge in there and let
Mm-hmm.
us focus on building this foundation here in Africa because we have everything we need. You can take whatever you
Everything.
need from Africa and bring it here to America.
Right.
But
And
a standing
right.
Africa, a standing Nigeria, for example, is a standing West Africa.
Mm-hmm.
And Black America can, and I don't even understand why Black America can't be like the sixth nation to the African Union.
Because the African Union is compromised and undermined and is
Exactly.
controlled by
Yeah.
outsiders.
Exactly. And so is the
Yeah.
Pan-African, like
Mm-hmm.
Tunanja was talking about that Pan-Africanism and then he was talking about in the comment. One thing
Mm-hmm.
he doesn't know is that your enemy can build your own group and association for you
Yep.
Exactly.
because there are 2 or 3 steps ahead of you.
Yep.
You get what I'm saying?
Exactly.
So,
And
all right, so family, we're gonna get ready to close out. So, starting with Brother Jay Lumumba, I'm allow everyone to go down the line and give their final thoughts regarding Pan-Africanism, the core question of today's conversation, and then of course, what steps should we take moving forward?
you want me to start?
Thank you. So
No, we can start. No, Brother Jay Lumumba, then we'll go clockwise.
You can't really just pronounce my name.
yeah,
Can
thank you. So vote for the unification of Africa, politically, economically, to benefit African people at home and abroad. So whatever you do, whoever you decide to vote for, or however you involve yourself politically, just stay focused on that unification of Africa. Support African people at home and abroad.
Ashe, Black Power. Brother B, I don't want to butcher your name. Go right ahead.
Okay,
First off, pronounce your name for me.
Biola or Abiola, which means we give birth to wealth. Abiola,
Biola.
I'm Yoruba.
Right.
I'm a Yoruba man.
All right,
So
cool. Go right ahead, brother.
I think the salvation, okay, let me start like this. Don't let us forget that Pan-Africanism started from Black internationalism.
This is true.
Black Pan-Africanism grew. It started from an ideology from the boys, and don't forget the first Pan-African meeting happened in 1910 or 1914 in England.
Well, yeah, the first one was 1900. They had a conference.
Right, the conference.
Yeah, right in 1900. Yeah,
and it kept growing in intellectualism. And don't forget that Pan-Africanism, everything that happens in the society happens inside Pan-Africanism, like feminism. How do we treat our women? Like economics. What kind of economical structure do we want? We are a nation. But what I want us to always remember is that any system will work as long as the soul of the people is with it. It's the people that make the system work, not the other way around.
That's right.
Right. Very quickly, Brother Jay Lumumba, somebody asked a question. Do you have a channel?
I don't. I want you to support Brother Dynast. Search for Uhuru. Support his channel. Support Lumumba Speaks. Support these brothers who are doing their thing and providing a platform for us to speak.
Okay. Well, you might want to get a channel, brother. You might want to get a channel. just want to say that.
I'm gonna just come talk to y'all, man.
All right, cool.
I'm just come talk to y'all on your channel.
No doubt.
So let me finalize what I want to say. I believe that where we should be going as African people, Black American, Nigeria, we should be going towards Nigeria. We should be going towards Nigeria. We should be going towards Nigeria because a prosperous Nigeria is a prosperous Black world. Thank you very much. I love you guys. And True Nigeria is not the Pan-Africanist. Thank you.
Be cool on.
I just want to give all my Africans in America a quick little message. Do not allow continental Africans to hop on panels and try to shame you guys for not being in the continent as if you cannot read on the history. Do not ever allow that. The only solution really is Pan-Africanism. And once you study like geopolitics, you study stuff on a macro level, you study foreign policies, you will see how they keep us divided and how they keep us weak and powerless. We have to study geopolitics and foreign policies to understand how the world is really being run. For example, to the one brother Day that was speaking earlier about we need to just focus on Black America, we can walk and chew gum. We can focus on problems in America while still working on a global connection. Everybody's built. Huh?
He said agreed.
Oh yeah.
A bridge. A bridge. Build a bridge that will go back and forth.
Facts. Everybody's building a global economic base. If we do not do that as Black people, we will be left behind. There's nothing but Arabs, white folks, and African and Chinese people right now in Africa building, buying property, building industries. While we keep only trying to focus on we keep being one-track minded, which we cannot afford to do so right now. This problem is interconnected. Our problem as African Americans, as Jamaicans, as Nigerians, Sierra Leoneans, is all interconnected. So we have to look at the problem at a macro level. That's what I wanted to say.
Okay. Wisdom never sleeps.
All right. I'm going to just say thank you to all the highly educated, highly conversational men that's always coming on these channels, and the host as well. But at the same time, I want to say, guys, you got to be of a warrior mind, of an intellect mind, of a business mind, but you got to be of a man's mind. You cannot keep being straddled the fence. You can't keep being an adolescent or a teenager. Eventually, you're going to have to make a concrete decision by listening to all things, not just your own words, not just your own what you've been taught. You got to listen to what's factual other than what you believe, because that's what it is, a belief that you hold something strongly, whether it was taught to you in truth or in a lie. You got to stop looking at the parties and the personalities. You got to look at the policies which you can get, which makes laws that may benefit you around a country or a matrix that you're operating in. So just sitting out all the time, if you don't want to do it naturally, you don't never fight about local politics, your school county commissioners, all those people affect you locally long before it gets to the federal level. You can create policies and protections locally in your own cities, your counties, and your states there, which can also hold, because remember, it's a United States. It's not a one state. It's a United States. So you all have just like the separate countries in Africa, you know. So we just got to be mindful of when we're talking, we get on a panel, we just don't always keep regurgitating. Sometimes it takes some listening and accepting what you hear. That is, people can prove it you with facts. Stop keeping trying to just debate all of this to just hear yourself talk. Men have a conversation. It can be heated. It can be whatever it needs to be. But in the end, we all say, this is what we need to do for us, not just me and my only household. So keep that in mind. And just, it's all right. Policy over personality. Policy
Right.
over uh, uh, what they give you to make you feel good, or symbolisms and things like that. But I will say this, you're going to also have to decide when you're ready to leave home. Why do I say that? When people are in a house with parents that just almost give them everything, they let them kind of do any kind of way, but they said, you know what? I know your life ain't that good, but if you want to keep eating at my table, you want to keep me feeding your clothes, you just gonna have to kind of do what I say. I don't hear you. I see you, and I know you're hurting. I know you're damaged. I know you're this. I know you have the best of clothes, and I know what you say you want, but you're not man or woman enough to go out and want to do it to leave me. So you got to leave that party mindset in order to go out and say, how can I do business with whomever, even if they don't talk good to me, they don't look right to me, but how can I get with them to leverage them to get what I need? It's called leverage. Leverage your vote, leverage your talents, leverage your knowledge, leverage your communication, leverage, leverage, leverage. So it's not about being Republican or Democrat or trying to say you independent. It's you saying, how can I leverage whoever is in there in policy making positions? So then, if I can't get 10 things, can I at least get 2? But at least I got something now. Another year, another 6 months, another 2 years or 4, I'll get 2 more things. We as a collective work towards that. And I believe we also got to understand we are one global commodity of people. And if we don't get that, like all of you know, this individual stuff won't matter, because we are going to go down as a collective, because only 30% is trying to get somewhere. The other 70 don't want to leave home. So y'all stay great as you already are and keep it going.
A king within one. Go right ahead.
Okay. I just want to touch on a couple of things. One, when he was talking about Russia, and they were saying that Russia wasn't doing good. Russia was actually doing great. It was one of the superpowers.
Yeah, but yeah, there were 2 superpowers in the world, and during the Cold War, America and the USSR.
Right. So, well, what happened was Russia had got into a war with Afghanistan, and America was giving Afghanistan all those missiles and stuff, and Russia ended up losing that war and going bankrupt. So, to say that they wasn't doing well under socialism, that's not the truth. As far as Venezuela, he was talking about Chavez. Chavez made Venezuela do good from the beginning to the time he got there, because they didn't have anything. And Chavez came in and nationalized the oil, right, which was to help them able to do stuff. Or once he died, of course, the whole time he was in there, they tried to kill him about 5 or 6 times.
This is true.
Because they wasn't using American money. You know what I'm saying? So once he got out of power, the Nicolas Maduro took over, and he was trying to nationalize everything and stop using American money and back their money with their resources. And they did the same thing to him. They created a coup and claimed a new president, you know what I'm saying, through the Europeans, and then instead of the one that was voted for. So they in Venezuela had one of the biggest oil caches in the world. And America, I'm just say America, but the Europeans in general, they put the sanctions on them, and they weren't able to collect the money that they were, because they were selling oil. They had oil over here in America, and they put the sanction on them. They wasn't able to collect their money from the banks, so that's why they're doing bad right now because of all the sanctions. So it's not, if you don't, really follow the politics, you would never know that.
And if
You
I
believe
could,
what they say.
a good book that speaks to this is the book by John Perkins. I just put it in the chat, highlighted it on the screen. Confessions of an Economic Hitman.
Yeah, exactly.
About these type of issues, how Western nations would work to undermine the economies of particular countries because they working to the benefit of American corporations.
Same thing they did with Zimbabwe.
Because ultimately, for the white man, it's about control.
Yeah.
That's why the black man must seek control.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
But
So,
in order to do that, though,
I don't care what anybody says.
in order to get that control, you have to, you got to be collective in how you do it. Right now, you have all these governments in Africa. Okay, this is my issue right here. Now we have with the Black Americans, the Black European, the Black people in UK, right? There's not that many of us. It's 40 some million in America, in the US, and hey, I think it's maybe less than that in the UK. So, and even we talking about Brazil, that's the biggest outside of Africa. That's the the largest population of Black folks. When you're talking about South America, so when you say that we're all African or we're Pan-African, you know what I'm saying, and that there's no you have a problem with citizenship, right? There's some places you have like the right to abode and stuff like that, and some places actually give citizenship. But as a collective, that's not what's happening. And I think that a lot of people, which I'm included in this, a lot of people don't want to go to Africa without any kind of rights and try to build anything, because it can be taken from you just like that, because you really don't have any rights over there.
Work. Pan-Africanism takes work, and this.
Yes. No, I agree. I'm with it. Yeah.
It's something
we're doing final comments, brother.
Yeah.
We're doing final comments.
Yeah. I'm with it. I'm not putting it down at all. I'm 100% with it. What I was saying is the governments that's holding everything up. It's the governments. So, the people, on every front, even here in America, we fighting our government to do, what we need them to do. And just like Nigeria or Ghana or South Africa, we're all fighting our governments to try to get them, to do what we need them to do. So we just have to be more diligent and coming together against putting people in office that we need, huh?
I don't think it's about diligence. I think there's the ugly side of Pan-Africanism we don't want to talk about. I think there's this ugly side that eventually, once we get our act right, we'll have to get involved in the ugliness of war.
Right,
because
but I understand
one of the questions that I want to ask,
closing, Virgin, closing.
We got to close out, brother.
Okay, sorry. Because Lumumba, I want to ask you a question. Lumumba, but go ahead.
So we're gonna pass it to brother Kofi.
Yeah, man, respect to the panel and everybody still, even though we have disagreements. All right, so number one, with Russia, it was the Wall Street banks that put the Bolsheviks in power. This is a well-known history for those who are familiar with the subject. They can read Wall Street and the Bolshevik Revolution by Anthony Sutton. Soviet Russia was bailed out a number of times by the United States and their bankers' friends because socialist countries are very unproductive and they always end up in starvation, etc. So that's Russia. Number two, with Venezuela, I don't know why people keep making excuses for Venezuela. Correlation is not causation. You know what I mean? Or causation is not correlation. Just because you have sanctions in Venezuela, that don't explain economic mess in Venezuela. The economic mess came before the sanctions when socialism imploded. Hold on. Argentina, which is another South American basket case, they don't have any sanctions over there, but they have socialist ideologies over there in terms of the Peronists who run that country for decades, and it's in the ground just like Venezuela. All right, so just please, um, for the young audience out there who just coming up into Pan-Africanism, etc., be wary of the echo chambers. All right, if you're gonna read Stokely Carmichael and Walter Rodney and Amos Wilson, fine, but try to go outside and read some Thomas Sowell, some Walter Rodney, some
Hey,
Ludwig von
so
Mises, some Milton Friedman. Try not be very wary of echo chambers. As Marcus Garvey said, the best system for the black race is a system that allows the laborers to rise to the level of the capitalist, because the capitalist is the hero of the story, is the hero of civilization. It's the capitalist that organizes the means of production in an efficient manner and raise the standard of living of societies. Entrepreneurship, competition, innovation, and progress, they go hand in hand. And when you have free people doing these things with less government interference in free people's lives, then living standards rise. This has been proven over and over again by
That's true.
different.
That's true. Let me push back real quick. Let me push back on that real quick.
But I don't finish my closing.
We gotta close out. We gotta close out. So we're gonna move it to what's the brother's name here? To Niger.
Yeah, thank you. See, part of this comment statement today was that somebody is trying to tell all Pan-Africanists in all regions how to be, and that is a mistake. If you do that, you are going to fail in whatever endeavor you are trying to meet. Because I have fought a lot of battles on the continent, talking to Africans about this Pan-Africanism, and many of them argue that it's basically Pan-Niger-Congoism, not Pan-Africanism. And even Akampaya was there. He was there, invade North Africans and do all kinds of stuff. The idea that this is that smooth is mistaken. Like, there are black people fighting for white people right now, some of them subverting the continent from the diaspora, doing it happily. The idea that you can say, oh, this person is Pan-African. Oh, what about Garvey talking to white supremacists? Should I say, how dare he do that? He's not Pan-African. The idea that we start doing whiter than white attitude, you're going to have a serious problem. And I think it reeks of arrogance to tell the continentals that you are not Pan-African. When they have a Pan-African parliament, they are trying to organize themselves in a Pan-African way, in such a way that there are people that trained Mandela, that fought the colonization on the continent, just like African Americans fought slavery in America, that are from North Africa. North Africans are not Arabs. Make no mistake, they are culturally Arabs, like we in Nigeria now are culturally Europeans. Just because we are black doesn't make any difference that we are culturally Europeans. Just like North Africans are culturally Arabs. Most of them are still Berbers, Tuaregs, and some of them are just as dark as we are. The idea that you say, oh, because they are Arabs, oh, you are no longer Pan-African, that is crazy. And we have to be very, very sensitive about these things, because if you go and say that kind of stuff on the continent, you are lending weight to some people of the continent that said the diasporans are not Africans. Yeah. Do you know how many battles are fought for that? Where they are saying, oh, how they are not Africans. You hear that all the time, especially from East Africans. So we have to be very careful. Some of the stuff we are saying, we have to learn to have a broad umbrella, especially when it comes to the continentals and the diasporans, because we are all kind of mixed. We all have different kind of ways of looking at this thing. And the common interest we all have is to uplift the entire black race. Yeah. That is our common interest. And if we don't focus on that and start looking at purer than pure, whiter than white, I found myself very sympathetic to some of the statements Candice Owen was making the other day when I saw her. And I can see the pain in her. The idea that somebody cannot hold an opinion that you don't like and at the same time hold opinion that you agree with, that it shouldn't exist. It does exist all the time. Like we disagree just now. But do we not have a common goal? We all have a common goal. If you know how, I have streams for that last almost 24 hours talking to Nigerians. We talk about this all the time. One of my biggest grievances with the Nigerian president was recently, he was talking about Nigerians going overseas, that he's going to train more of them to go overseas, that if they need more, he will supply them more. like the way these people supply slaves to foreigners. That was one of my biggest grievances. I almost declared myself an enemy to my own president.
Right.
For saying that. And I'm here hearing fellow black people telling me I'm not a Pan-African. Do you know how offensive that sounds? I'll leave it at that.
Was that a mic drop?
Mic drop.
Appreciate you all for tapping in. Appreciate you all for tapping in. Until next time, y'all know what to do. Always bet on black. Peace.
All right, fellas.
Peace.